Hello all. I think I've got, this is Brianna. Excuse me if my technical capabilities are not quite as fabulous as Alyssa's are, but I think this is everybody. Or no?
Yeah, I think it might be all that we're getting tonight. Is Paula? There we go. Yep. So are we live, ready to go? Let's see. There we go. All right. All right. Welcome everybody to our second city council meeting. It's it's May 20th, 2021. Ryan, let's do roll call.
All right. Mayor Godis.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Willman.
Here.
Councillor Kaup.
Here.
Councillor Hershey.
Here.
Councillor Davis.
Here.
Councillor Stepp.
Here.
Councillor Russo. We have a quorum.
All right. I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next item, agenda changes or conflicts. Any conflicts of interest? See, no. Oh, Tony, you have your hand up, sorry.
I have a agenda change request. I would ask that item number 25, COVID-19 update and face covering extensions, be moved to either number 11 or number 12. I guess I could make that as a formal motion if the mayor would like.
Tony, if you would acquiesce to doing it to item number 13, we always just historically do it after planning items, and I'm loath to do that. So if you do it to 13, I would.
I certainly appreciate that, but planners and lawyers and me can wait till 11 o'clock at night. That's why I'm asking it to be moved up a little bit. But you know, I think 13 is fine, but just not at the end when it could be. When you say 9 o'clock, it could be 10:30. So
sure.
13. If everyone would agree that 13 is good, if Paula and Shelley and Charlie and Steve agree, then I would do that.
Perfect. All right. Any other agenda changes or conflicts? And please remind me when we get there. I get pretty focused on numbers sometimes.
Can you put it on your little? I'll write it down. 13.
13. All right. Any conflicts of interest? All right. Seeing none. Citizens appearing. That's where we are. Citizens appearing before council for items not on the agenda. If your item is on the agenda later, please save your questions for that time. I see a hand up. Miss Phillips, Sharma Phillips, go ahead. I'm trying to, you know what? I don't think, sorry. I'm not allowed, I'm not the administrator of the meeting, I think technically.
Yeah, so I think you need to have whoever's, if it's Brianna running it, make you a, we can't remember the administrator or presenter.
Administrator, yeah.
Yes, working on it. Thank you.
Just right click over his name and make.
Okay. Here we go. Go ahead, Sharma.
Jonathan, I'm going to keep coming as long as it takes to get my name right.
Okay.
Just a forewarning. Okay, thank you. Hello, my name is Sharma Phillips, and I'm here tonight as a follow-up to the City Council meeting I appeared out on May 6th. I appeared to ask for permission and clarification on holding exercise classes for pay at city parks. In regards to the City Council concerns that were brought up at the last meeting, I would like to make clear that the permit I am seeking is for less than 1 hour twice a week. My average class attendance is 8 people. We do not take space that is reserved, and we follow the first come, first serve rule as listed in city code. This is not the same as food trucks showing up at the park and staying for hours every day. Examples of other for-profit private schools that use city parks are kids going out for recess every single day over at the local parks. I would like to know if they have a special permit to do so, and if they do, how is my request any different? I feel the fitness instructors are being singled out. I heard myself that you can't know everything that's going at the park. However, you are aware of what I'm doing because I am a fitness instructor. And as an instructor, I received a phone call from a detective, which I believe was in an attempt to bully or control me. And it was at the very least an overkill of reaching out to follow up. Let's remember that there is no law or rule or ordinance that explicitly states that I can't be at the park to do money or to make money for my classes. There's nothing in writing that I can refer to. And I realize that the city council is attempting to organize a way in which these requests can be processed. But my question is, in the meantime, why can't we proceed as we did last year? It worked great last year, and it can work great again this year. My request is to use the park in a very minuscule fashion. It serves our citizens, it builds the community, and we leave no trace. Literally last year, one of my warm-ups was handing out plastic gloves to every classmate, and the team who collected the most amount of trash won. Sadly, what they won was a pile of trash, but they didn't mind because we left the park better than we found it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sharma. And if you stay around, I would care to address that during my council comments, so maybe hold tight. Anybody else from the public like to comment on items not appearing on the agenda? Is it all clear, everybody? Can we all agree that there's no other hands up? Okay. Let's bring it back for council comments. I guess I'll go first if people don't mind. Usually I go last, but I would like to respond to the commenter. I think going into COVID and throughout COVID, we gave a lot of latitude to a lot of groups, a lot of people, because, it's a once in a generation pandemic. And I know we've come out of it in fits and starts. And I think that while we were pretty quick to just relax all the rules and regulations and say, just go and just do, what you need to do and do it in a safe manner. We did have some time to try to develop something and get an idea of how we could come out of it. But we probably didn't foresee that people would want to stay outside. I think we thought that people would come back inside and be business to usual, like one day or over the course of a couple of months. So this is a unique situation, I think, with Sharma. And, she does bring up good points because we don't have necessarily a good policy or procedure. It doesn't have to be in code. Let's admit to that. This can be an internal policy procedure. I think if we need to codify it, City Attorney Hanlon, then maybe at some point we will. But I think for my purpose, what I would like to do, I know the process right now has been referred to Parks and Rec Commission for them to look into this and give us a recommendation. But I guess my suggestion would be in the next 30 days to 45 days, we not sweat the small stuff. And we continue to waive our park fees and commercialization. I think we do need to bring it back and figure out how this works based on recommendations from our Parks and Rec Commission and staff. But until then, I guess I would be supportive of not being a little more relaxed in our commercialization of our parks. That would be my suggestion. I don't know if anybody else would agree with that. Go ahead, Deborah. I'd love to hear staff's opinion on this.
I just wanted to make it perfectly clear, it is in code. So if you guys want us to not enforce our code, that is a different thing than saying it's not in code. It was approved in 2018 by City Council. So you guys, of course, can tell us not to follow our code. I just want you to understand that it's a distinction.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Let me follow up on that. You guys approved a set of, you were very specific about a set of rules and regulations regarding the parks. You had a fair amount of discussion about it and brought it back. I guess what I would ask respectfully, Mr. Mayor, is the food truck okay? Is, a ropes course okay in the next 45 days? Like, I mean, it's kind of a slippery slope. I want to get to this as quickly as we can. But we also have a process that we utilize on a fairly regular basis to address these things. It's why we have the boards and commissions. It's why we bring back code changes to you guys. It's why I think Brian brought back those rules and regulations 2 or 3 times for your consideration in 2018. So, I would, obviously council can do what they will with this, but it feels like we have a process that we normally follow, and that maybe that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, so thanks for that clarification. I appreciate that. I think a lot of the processes, we waived our sign code for over a year. We're going to address it tonight. We addressed it last time as well during council comments, but we're going to address it in a more official way. So I guess I, for one, am okay with waiving our code. Again, because the COVID crisis is made things uneven and bumpy, but I'm fine to defer to the will of council. If other folks think that we should, go through a more regular process, I'm absolutely fine with that. So I guess I will rest my case, and if people in their comments would like to weigh in or not on this, that'll let me know similarly. So thank you. Charlie, Paula, Shelley, and Steve, but Charlie first. Go ahead.
Well, my comment on what we're just discussing is I'm empathetic to what Ms. Phelps is saying and understand where she's coming from, but I'm not prepared to waive code. I think that sets a bad precedent for us as a council. We waive code on this issue, we're going to waive it on some other issue. And I would hope that we could move this through the process fairly quickly so that she get clear direction, but I'm not willing to waive code. My other reason I raised my hand is that, as you all know, I'm on the CML, Colorado Municipal League Board of Directors, and we have a annual board retreat, which did not occur last year due to COVID. There's going to be a board retreat the first week in July, and this came up with the issue. I signed up for this and registered. It's 2 nights in Steamboat as part of that. I don't know what we're going to do about paying for travel costs of council. If you're unwilling or we don't think it's a good idea yet until we look at our budget, it's fine, I'll pay for it. But I just want to raise the issue. I brought up with Deborah and she said I should bring it to council. So I don't know what our policy is going to be on traveling to the things that we are assigned to as and or volunteered for, because I certainly volunteered for this.
And I think I'm only asking that you brought it up because I think that was what council asked us to do. I think there is, there is money in the budget for this kind of thing. I am not concerned about it. We hadn't really anticipated a lot of travel this year, but I think we're gonna start now a little bit.
Thanks, Deborah. I didn't mean to misstate what you said.
So just to be clear, Charlie, you're asking for us to say, yeah, this is, yes, I know there's a watch.
How do you want to do it? I'm not asking particularly with respect to my conference, but I figured there's other conferences. What are we going to do? I know there'll be a CML fall conference in September, which I'm also going to be wanting to attend as a member of the executive board, but I don't know how we're going to handle travel. We traveled on our events and we submitted a expense reimbursement request. We did it that way. And I don't want to start a trend that the council's not ready to start yet. So
I think that's fair. Should we get that on a future agenda, Deborah?
If that's what you would like, that is fine.
Yeah, I think so. Let's just get a recommendation on a group travel allowance and then take these, I guess, one by one and just have Charlie or whomever come to council if this is okay with everybody else and just say, here's what I'd like to do. Here's what why I think it's valuable. And we can give the thumb up or like a maybe not. That's how we've done it in the past. Is that okay, Charlie?
that's all I have. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
We'll put it on the next one.
cool. Paula and then Shelley.
Oh, questions to answer first. Travel. Yeah, put it on the agenda. I think if you're volunteering to do this and spending time, I'm for supporting that cost covered. Parks. I see what Jonathan's saying. I hear what staff is saying. And we're looking 45 days out. So that's beginning mid-July. Once again, I kind of go back to the small town thing. I'd love to accommodate to some degree if we really thought there was going to be a rush of businesses using the park, though, which I don't think is going to happen. I'm for flexibility right now. We've had a lot of flexibility in the last year. We'll start tightening up as we get post-COVID, hopefully. So I guess I'm backing Jonathan on that one. But those aren't the reasons I put my hand up. I have a couple of things. One, I had a citizen call and say they'd like to give comments, but they wondered if there was another way they could register their name and town, because they wouldn't do a comment in public in fear of reprisal. And I don't know if that's ever been discussed. I just said I would bring it up to council, that somebody could call ahead of time to city staff and say, I'm going to give a comment on Thursday night. Here's my name and address, and I'll just give my first name there. I'm just putting it out there. That was a suggestion for somebody who felt uncomfortable giving that information in public on a controversial issue.
I think that a lot of jurisdictions, Paula, and we've talked about this in the past here, just give a name and a town. So, just like, Carl Hanlon, unincorporated Garfield County, or Jonathan Godis, city limits of Glenwood Springs. And in that, and for a while we were doing that here in Glenwood when the first of sort of the concern about identity theft occurred and privacy issues came up. So I think, depending on, it's one of those things I think council can certainly encourage people just to do that. They don't need to provide an address.
Okay. All right. I just want to put that out there if the rest of the council agrees to move along on some kind of, I know we've talked about this before. I know we're coming back in person, but I think it's worth discussing. Another one was, I got a letter from, and other people may have gotten it about trying to get a porta potty set up on the Rio Grande Trail by the high school. There's a lot more activity going on over there. This kind of goes back to Tony's Water for Dogs, but they just mentioned that what they're finding is people are using the bushes instead, which is not what we want. So that might be something for city staff to look at, and maybe they already are. He mentioned he talked to Dan Roper, so I just was bringing it to the rest of council because it was brought to me. Deborah, if you just want to talk about that, or we can address it later, I wanted to get that on the table.
I don't know if Brian is looking at that. He is an attendee. I don't think it's a huge problem. There's a cost to them, of course. Couple $1,000 a year, but Brian is coming over. So
I see him there. Yes. So I have one more after Brian talks. I see him. Brian?
Can you hear?
Yeah.
There we go. I don't see the option to share my video, but if you can hear me, I'll go ahead and talk.
You were very quiet, Brian.
Sorry.
I can hear Brian just fine.
Okay, maybe it could be my ears. Go ahead, Brian.
Yawn. Well, now I'm having trouble hearing him.
He's mute.
Oh,
I'm muted. There we go. Can you hear me all right now? All right. So yes, we are aware of that request. We are looking at it. Just so you're aware, we spend a little over $7,000. I think last month we spent $7,200 on portalets in the city. It's a substantial cost for us. So we are trying to be, and it takes a lot of monitoring. So we are trying to be careful with the budget for it. We are having some of that cost covered by COVID relief funds, but yeah, in short answer to your question, we're aware of it, we're looking at it. We're just trying to find ways that we can keep the portalet costs manageable.
Okay. Thanks, Brian. I just wanted to bring it up since it was brought to me. And your next thing is not parks. The one thing that has happened in the last 3 months, 4 months, is we've been seeing board members leave boards because they were term limited out or decided not to continue to run. And a board member came to me and said they were really surprised there was no thank you or anything along that line when they left. And I think we should set up just a letter or something that goes to any board member that serves, that once they're off the board, we express our appreciation as a council and thank you for the service. I'm just a letter of some kind is what I'm thinking to, these people give up a lot of time, not just in the board meetings, but outside those board meetings. So if we could consider that policy moving forward, that'd be great.
I think we typically try to do that. We might miss some, but
I would definitely put city council members' names on that letter if that takes a city council approval, but I see how, yeah, that would be great, Deborah, if it was just kind of set in stone.
I agree. Paul, you good? Okay. Shelley.
Okay, and Paula, I agree with that also. I think we have discussed that a little bit before, but there's been a lot going on. So, and also, and Jonathan, on your comments, I agree with you. And I really do feel like our parks are public lands. And I understand that we pass those rules and we should work within them. If we can look at doing some changes to allow permitting for activities. And I guess I want to be clear on that, Deborah and Carl, so we cannot even permit a private fitness class at this time?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your question, Shelley.
Can we not, under the current regulations, permit for a private fitness class in the park?
3 times a year, I believe, or if they get a special permit with city council, right? So that's how we have the paragliding and I just want you guys to be aware, if we just waive the sign, if we just waive the code, that's waiving it for, everything everywhere.
Yeah,
which you guys can do.
Waive the code, but I do think that time is of the essence here. I wouldn't like this to drag out until July when, you've kind of lost the season of activity. Because, I know we lease parks or we allow parks for the different soccer clubs, things like that, to use the parks for fitness. I don't see a huge difference here. I do understand that it's profit, but I think it fits with the purpose of our park. So that's just my comment. I kind of agree with Jonathan, but backing off just out and out waiving things right now. But I would like to see it as soon as possible come back to us.
Well, and we do. So council knows we have meetings scheduled next week internally. We're hoping to get something. The reason we're doing that so quickly is so that we can have that discussion with the Parks and Rec Board on what the options might be. So they have something to look at. I believe Brian or Deborah, help me out. It's the first week of June.
June 3rd, I believe, is Park and Rec's meeting.
So
I think
it's going to the Parks and Rec Board.
Second.
So presumably you might see something by the second meeting in June.
Okay.
So yeah, we're trying to crank along on this. I wanted to be careful too that the things like the paragliding, the rafters, those things like that, they are obviously fairly large contracts that for those entities are not inexpensive.
Right.
So, I mean, just keep that in mind that, and in particular, the paragliders aren't landing in a park. They're just landing on city property.
Okay. But I realized too that, we did, as Jonathan said, we relaxed a lot of rules during COVID. And for example, we relaxed the rules on alcohol consumption and in certain areas and things like that. And those are being extended. We're looking at extending some of that tonight. So I guess that's where I could see maybe extending this, because there are members of the community that might not be comfortable yet going back to a health club, but just something for consideration. But
Right now we have available in our code where somebody, if I heard you correctly, Deborah, and please correct me if I did not hear you correctly, but we allow someone to petition city council directly for a special use permit, essentially.
Essentially to contract directly with city council,
Okay.
like to contract with the city. By way of example, the paragliders, I can't remember what they pay annually, or the rafting companies. All of those entities have specific contracts that address their use of city property. So it's not a permit. It's not a just, you know, if it works out for them or not. There's literally a contract in place between the city and that vendor for that use at that location.
And they typically pay us, well, it's not always, but typically it's like per person participating in the activity.
okay. Well,
Ryan?
Sorry, just real quick point of clarification for the benefit of the public. The Parks and Recreation Commission meeting is on May 2nd, Wednesday.
okay. Okay, thanks.
June 2nd, right? Brian,
June.
not
June 2nd. Okay.
Sorry,
Well,
yeah,
thanks.
June 2nd. Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate that moving quickly then. Thank you for that. Okay, and then the only other comment I had was a resident sent to me a link to a news article that was on 9 News sometime earlier this week about the crisis that they're having in housing in Frisco, in Summit County. And I think we're seeing the same thing. It's being seen all over the mountain towns. And there was a comment made by Councilor Wusso at our last meeting about how, you know, the real estate market we're seeing right now, we're transitioning to a second homeowner community. That horrifies me. I don't know about the rest of council and other residents in town, but Glenwood has never been that kind of a place. You know, I'm sure there were a few second homes here, but we've always been a mountain community where people live and raise their families. And for the most part, we have a minimal percentage of our housing stock that's second homes sitting empty. And we have put regulations in on VRBO. So I just wanted to throw it out there. Frisco was quoted as their city manager as they're considering declaring a state of emergency on housing. I just wanted to know if council would be interested in having that conversation and maybe having legal bring us, are there any options that we can put on to kind of discourage this? Because you're concerned that if you lose a certain percentage of your housing stock to second homes and vacation homes, you're losing your community. So just an idea. I would love to have that conversation, see if there's anything we can do. I have no idea what's legal, if there are any tools out there, but just throwing that out for council. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Julie, I think that's great. I think that's a great question. We have a great, as we saw tonight, Housing Commission, and I know we have a good P&Z. I think I'd be interested to have that conversation happen at that level, with obviously legal counsel available, and then potentially come to us with recommendations. And then maybe the short answer, Carl, is there's absolutely nothing we can do. Sorry, don't even waste their time. And if that's the case,
you know, I mean, I haven't really looked into that. I know I will tell you, because I work, as you guys know, I work over in Summit County too. We're all looking at anything and everything that we can do. You know, housing, and as you heard earlier today, how that plays into the lack of employees is really, you know, it's hugely impactful across all of the mountain communities right now. So it's definitely a conversation worth having, I think.
okay. So I guess, how do we start that conversation? Would the best way be to remand it to P&Z or housing, or jointly P&Z and housing, or what's the next steps, Carla? That's the will.
You know, I guess my sense of it is probably more of a housing question at the moment, to have that discussion. And I think the starting point is probably for us on the staff side to have a little bit, like, I mean, I can't tell you off the top of my head whether or not I have a tool in the toolbox to do something or not. And that's probably the starting point. is to take a look at that. You know, in terms of the bigger picture, obviously the Housing Commission is looking at every option available, and you're considering and talking about that a little bit later tonight in trying to create some additional housing opportunities. So it's probably that's the first place, and then we'll get back to you, I think would be the best answer I have.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we're playing offense and defense on these things, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Any other council comments? Go ahead, Steve Davis.
You know, I'm going to bring us back around and roll some eyes probably on staff, but I am as well sympathetic to Sharma's classes. And I think this process might drag out to her demise and to others that are in a similar situation. I think we should move rapidly, but in the meantime, I'm going to make a motion to give her 45 days of a permit to have her classes 2 days a week while we work through this, to give us an opportunity to go through Park and Rec and back to council to discuss this further. You know, in my mind, the kind of exception that I would consider making is for schools or classes. I happen to know that St. Stephen's School, as an example, uses Veltus Park 5 days a week. And I bet nobody's ever said anything to them about it. So that's my motion. And if somebody would second that and we could allow her 5 days, I think that'd be great.
I'll second that, Steve, and I'll note that the Catholic school also uses Sayre Park almost every day.
I think you're talking about the same thing.
I think that's, yeah.
No, he said Veltus Park. They also use Sayre Park for recreation.
Yeah, I meant Sayre Park.
Okay.
There is a motion and a second to grant Sharma Phillips a 45-day permit for no more than 2 days a week. Is there further conversation? Councilor Willman.
Yeah, I'm going to oppose it, not because I'm against Liz Phelps' use, but because I think it violates our code. And I appreciate, Steve, what you're saying. And I don't think we should be starting to create exceptions from the council or citizen comment. So it's all.
Shelley.
I think I can support that motion since it's kind of a temporary situation, and I am sympathetic to the issues at stake here. Is there any way we can add to that, you know, it has to comply with the park rules and regulations and kept clean and all of that type of thing?
Obviously.
Okay. So we have a motion, a second. Ryan, let's call the question.
Mayor Pro Tem Willman,
No.
Councillor Kaut,
Yes.
Mayor Godis,
Yes.
Councillor Hershey,
Yes, sir.
Councillor Russo, Councillor Stepp,
Yes.
Councillor Davis.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Go ahead, Deborah.
So we will get others requests. Would you like us just to do an agenda item next time for them?
Nope. If they want to be on the agenda, they can request to be on the, I mean, if they want to do something, then until they do it, they need to come before us and we need to approve it one by one.
We will do that.
You know, and let me just say that I think this one is caught midstream. I don't know that we have any others midstream, but if there are other requests, then we're out ahead of it. So.
Okay. Any other council comments? All right, seeing none, I believe we have a video, a somewhere between 7 and 17 minute video that Brienne, if you would like to share your screen and play it, that would be awesome.
Matt Langhorst, Public Works Director for the City of Glenwood Springs. We're here at the beautiful No Name intake where our main water supply is gathered and brought to the city. The project we've been working on for basically the last 6 months up in this location and Grizzly Creek is armoring up the intakes. We expect to potentially see some debris flows in the future from the burn scar. So what we've done at these locations is add steel armoring, add deflection walls through large concrete blocks. We've opened up the channels a little bit and added bank armoring on the channels so that any debris flows that do come down, we have the best chance of our intakes surviving those events. Thanks to this project, we are better equipped to handle debris flows coming down the channels with all of the armoring on the intakes, the additional space within the channels themselves, being able to take some mud flow and not clog the channels up, in conjunction with all of the other projects we're doing within the city, within the No Name tunnel, at the water plant, additional redundant pipe systems that are going to be starting to be built this year and are already completed at this point. So the city should be able to handle much higher levels of sediment within the water systems, carbon, organics, heavy metals. So the water system and the water that the residents of the city of Glenwood Springs will have will be just as good as it used to be.
Hi, everybody. It's Michael Bennett. Last summer, the combination of the pandemic and the Grizzly Creek fire.
I apologize. It sounds like there's probably a lag happening on the video.
I think it's better now. I think it was just Matt Langhorst's section, and it might have been just because it was a very high resolution. But Senator Bennett he doesn't seem to have that lag. Is everybody else seeing the same thing that I am? Okay, I think it's good right now.
Okay, pardon this unscheduled interruption. Will now return to your regular scheduled programming.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Fire presented Glenwood Springs and Garfield County with tremendous challenges. Through it all, you've worked together and persevered to come out stronger on the other side. I'd like to congratulate Mayor Jonathan Godis and all the staff of the City of Glenwood Springs on the successful completion of this emergency watershed protection project. Stabilizing the water intake infrastructure at Grizzly Creek and No Name is integral for protecting access to clean water for the community of Glenwood Springs. We're grateful for your leadership on the ground and your collaboration with state and federal partners, including CDOT, Division of Homeland Security Emergency Management, USDA, and NRCS. We need to make sure we continue to invest in critical infrastructure to mitigate and prevent future crises. That's why I recently reintroduced the Match Act with Senator Mitt Romney, a Republican from Utah. The bill requires USDA to credit landowners for time-critical mitigation efforts to help expedite disaster cleanup and prevent future disasters. I will work with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to get the Match Act across the finish line. Congratulations again on the successful completion of this great project. I look forward to being with all of you again soon.
Hi, Senator Hickenlooper here. I want to congratulate the City of Glenwood Springs on the completion of the Emergency Watershed Protection Project. We were all struck by the damage of the Grizzly Creek fire last year, and this is such an important milestone in the rebuilding process. I know how vulnerable this region is to future disasters and how important it is to address deficiencies in emergency access and evacuation routes for Coloradans in the Roaring Fork Valley. Unfortunately, due to a changing climate, we're only expecting to see an increase in the frequency and intensity of wildfires here in Colorado. Senator Bennett and I were glad to sign a letter in support of the city's effort to secure a federal grant for the South Bridge project that is so important to protecting our friends and neighbors who call Glenwood Springs home. Again, congratulations on wrapping up the Emergency Watershed Protection Project. I look forward to continuing to support your efforts and to drive policies that protect our communities and make our communities more resilient. Keep up the good work. I'm with you in Glenwood Springs.
My name is Stephen Jowen. I am the District Conservationist for the Natural Resources Conservation Service here in Glenwood Springs. My agency is responsible for the Emergency Watershed Protection Plan. And we'd like to thank, first of all, the city of Glenwood Springs who stood up and stepped up to take sponsorship of the projects within this area, specifically the No Name Creek and the Grizzly Creek water intakes for the city of Glenwood Springs. They've been a great partner for us. They've helped us get on the ball and get moving as quickly as possible. The NRCS provides funds for these types of projects to help protect these values at risk. These specific values are very important for the city of Glenwood Springs as their intakes, and the city stepped up right away to sponsor these projects. I'd like to also just thank everybody in NRCS that works on the EWP project, especially Todd Bolt, the EWP coordinator, and our state engineer. In a fire season that we had like last year, it stretches us pretty thin, and so the partnership between our sponsorships, our sponsors, and the private industry like SGM taking on the engineering and Gould Construction taking on the construction, and working together, it really helps us move that ball forward to protect these values at risk. I'd also like to thank our congressmen, representatives, congresswomen for keeping EWP funded. I know throughout the state we're still needing funds for EWP to protect some other communities, and so we like to thank them for really stepping up and requesting those funds at the national level. This type of partnership is very unique, and it takes time and energy from all of us to keep that ball moving. And I'd really like to thank again the city of Glenwood Springs for stepping up and doing that and managing these projects.
Hi, my name is Deborah Figueroa. I am the city manager for Glenwood Springs. I'm happy today to let our community know that their watershed and their water has been protected from the Grizzly Creek fire due to the efforts of NRCS staff, Gould Construction, Matt, our Public Works Director, and his team, and everyone who helped protect it in the original fire. I cannot thank everyone enough for pulling together the way we did. And I also cannot thank NRCS staff enough. During the Grizzly Creek fire, they came to City Hall. They explained to us how we could move forward. Those were some of the worst weeks in city staff and our community's lives dealing with COVID and the Grizzly Creek fire. And they explained to us how we could move forward, and we did in record time, thanks to Matt and everyone else pulling together. I'm very happy to thank everyone once again and to tell our community our watershed is safe going into the future.
Okay, so I've been asked to lead us in a toast, and it feels wrong toasting with water, but at the same time, it is so right. So I just want everybody to raise their glass of clear, clean, amazing water brought to you by everybody here and their agencies. To Glenwood and to Glenwood's water. Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Brianna. That's awesome putting that video together. That's great. We're going to be sending that out to all of our partners. Obviously, the folks who helped us in NRCS, the CWCB, White River National Forest, and of course, we couldn't have done this without Matt Langhorst, Carl Hanlon, Deborah Figueroa, all of our staff that I'm not even coming close to mentioning. So that video was brought to you by all of our staff. So thank you very much, guys. We are now, I think, moving officially out of council comments on to consent agenda. Charlie, do you have a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. All right, next item is a presentation from the Office of Financial Empowerment. Oh, I need to promote folks.
And Barbara Freeman as well.
Thank you kindly for the promotion, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. My name is John Fox Rubin, and I'm here with Barbara Freeman to tell you a little bit about a new office at the state called the Office of Financial Empowerment. We've been working in the community between Parachute and Aspen for over a year, listening to people's money stories from their lived experience. It's a project we are calling the Money Matters Project locally, but it's been part of this broader effort by the Bell Policy Center to look at how we can empower people that are often marginalized by our economic system. Some other folks that have been with us on this project are Anna Karen, Brandy Gilbert, Ileana Rentiera, Monica Brutau, and Nicolette Toussaint. These folks have a wide range of experiences in our community, and by using them to reach out and find people's stories, we really are building a basis for having an office that's part of a new statewide office that can help our community in a variety of areas where people struggle financially, whether it's financial literacy, access to credit, access to fair banking practices, et cetera. This new office just passed the House today. It passed the Senate earlier, so it is going to be a reality. It still needs to go through appropriations, and it's not a big office. Its appropriation on the fiscal note is essentially 2 FTEs, but it will start the process of building a really interesting new office. This will be the first statewide office of financial empowerment. There's already a whole number of cities, including the city of Denver, that this is modeled after. And it just does amazing work in the communities that it's been in. So that bill is going forward. And why we're talking to you tonight is to let you know about it and to ask you to engage a little bit. But we'll tell you who else we've been speaking to. We've spoke to the Garfield County Commissioners, and we've spoken to the Pickens County Commissioners. And as we know, this region has very diverse politics, but most of us can agree that people knowing more about their options and what they should do to manage their finances and get out of debt, whether they're recently coming out of prison, as some of the folks we spoke to, or currently homeless or formerly homeless, or immigrants that haven't had access to traditional banking. We think that's the role that this office can play. And I'm going to hand the rest of the presentation over to Barbara Freeman, who is the CEO of La Medici, which is an organization that's a gem in our community that helps people that don't have access to traditional banking. So Barbara?
Yeah, well, yeah, thanks, John, and thanks everyone for talking to us. And we don't have a great amount of time, so I think we'll stick with John's explanation of what an office is. But I think that what I just want to put in your minds is when we talk about an office, it looks more like a network of local empowerment efforts, and that is convened by a statewide office. And well-resourced programs like this typically only reside in cities like Denver and San Francisco and so forth. So we have an opportunity to have a full-fledged Office of Financial Empowerment for our residents too. And as we've been building over the past 2 years, in fact, building this Colorado Office of Financial Empowerment Coalition, we've been working closely with the CFE Fund, which is the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund. And the CFE Fund works with cities across the country to improve the financial stability of individuals and communities by embedding financial empowerment into local government. And they do so by providing funding and support. And the CFE Fund has agreed to aggregate our towns, Glenwood Springs and our other towns and counties, which would make us the size of a city, and in turn would enable us to apply for grant funding to start things up. They also build administrative capacity through support such as access to best practices that have been successfully implemented across municipalities, access to call centers to guide residents to resources, and by training local staff as qualified counselors. So the CFE Fund has agreed to host a free workshop for us locally. That would include helping us through the planning process with relevant stakeholders, guiding us to tailor financial empowerment solution to our local needs and context, amongst other things. As John indicated, we've spoken with Pitkin County and Garfield County, and we'll be speaking with Eagle County in the next week. So far, both counties are interested in attending this workshop with municipalities to explore possibilities for a regional Office of Financial Empowerment. So we want to just make you aware of this opportunity, and we'll invite you and your staff to the workshop once we set a date. John, did I miss anything? Did you want to add anything?
No, great job. I hope we stuck to the 5 minutes. We do have a video as well that we can share, or maybe you have access to it already. And it has, a few minutes. It's maybe 5 minutes long, but it's worth looking at to get an idea of some of the people that we interviewed and met with. Yeah, I mean,
I have one thing to add, by the way, Charlie, you are like in the light where on my screen, and you're just shining like this angelic glow.
Thank you, Barbara.
Yeah, we have 15 minutes allocated for this agenda item. I don't mind if there's not a lot of questions seeing the video, if you want to share your screen, John.
Ooh, let me see if I can do that. Last time I tried that, it didn't work so well. So let's I was just prepared to send it to you, but give me one quick second.
Paula has a question.
Yeah. While you're looking, Paula, go ahead.
Yeah, I hope this doesn't take too long. Just real quickly, is there going to be a tracking process on successes and that type of stuff afterwards?
Yes, there is. It's actually written into the bill. So, and we would love to work with you, Paula, and everyone on actually looking at those metrics. So when somebody comes in at the statewide level, the person that is being funded, they'll help set the metrics. But they have asked us actually to help provide input into that. So yeah, great question. And some of those metrics, I see John has the video up. So, but some of those metrics are, just so you know, the biggest one is probably helping people in debt reduction. And helping people with foreclosure and so forth. So there's some interesting and really important metrics. So I'd love to return to that conversation.
Okay, I'll start the video, and someone please yell if it's not working or if you can't hear it.
Cuando yo tuve a mi bebé, no pude pagar una factura de $500, pero ahora la pregunta o la inquietud es de saber si estoy en colección por esa factura. Nosotros no somos dueños de casa ni de traila. Nosotros rentamos en un apartamento en Spring Valley. No nos hemos podido comprar una casa porque no tenemos el crédito que se necesita para tener una casa. No hemos podido sacar crédito para un carro porque los intereses son muy altos y todos los carros que hemos tenido pues han sido usados.
Okay, my dream is pay this small house and buy one real house. I need help for somebody help me who find another company and maybe refinancing something, or I don't know.
El que tiene tarjeta de crédito es mi marido. Él tuvo un accidente, se quebró el cuello y estuvo en Grand Junction por una semana. A causa de eso tenemos una deuda muy grande en el hospital.
I thought of, since I'm not very computer savvy, my idea is to hire somebody, like a financial advisor or someone like that, to do that for me and just pay them, because I don't think they have a head for it.
All my income goes to supporting my 2 kids in another state. My full-time job does not pay enough to support my family or 3 kids here in Aspen. So I sent my children to live with their father, who just recently found work after 3 years.
Mi esposo se vino cuando mi hijo tenía 1 año de edad y él mandó por mí hace 2 años. Le cobraron $7,000, tuvimos que pedir prestado en El Salvador y la otra mitad mi esposo se la está pasando al señor, le cobra como si hubiera sido un préstamo con réditos.
Los préstamos que nos ofrecen son muy pequeños. Pienso que por no tener seguro social nos piden un pago inicial mucho más grande. Por eso es a veces casi imposible comprar una casa. Vivimos rentando y ahora con esto de la pandemia, nuestra rentera, nuestra casera, nos dijo que si no pagábamos para el día que nos tocaba nos iba a subir $50 de retraso por día.
For many facing ongoing financial challenges, a visit to the doctor or a car expense can lead to inescapable debt. A statewide Office of Financial Empowerment can proactively improve our community members' real-life chances, particularly those living in the most vulnerable conditions, who need access to information, good credit, and opportunity.
All right. Well, thank you very much, guys. Is there anything else you have, or are there any questions or comments?
Yeah, that's it for us. We'd love to answer any questions.
I mean, I can't have ice cream anymore.
Well, they make so many alternatives.
All right. Seeing no questions or comments, thank you very much. It was a great presentation. Well done video, by the way, as well.
Thank you all.
Thank you for having us. Yeah,
Have a good evening, guys. We really appreciate the work you guys are doing.
thank you. Bye now.
All right. All right. Next up, item number 12, planning file 6920. This is the consideration of a special use permit for a retail marijuana establishment at 2114 Grant Avenue. This was continued from our last meeting. We're reopening the hearing. We have taken public comment. We are bringing it back now to council. Has there been any additional comments submitted in the 2 weeks that we need to be aware of that hasn't already been shared to our packet? Oh, I gotta probably promote some people here. Okay. Trent's coming over.
Hey, good evening, Mayor and City Council. Trent Hyatt with Community Development. I did just want to give you a very quick update. The new comments received since the May 6th meeting have been included in your packet, all of those combined into one document. I also did want to point out that you received a letter from our Chief Darris with the Glenwood Springs Police Department, who was commenting on some comments and information that was provided at the last meeting. Happy to answer any questions. If you have them, let me know.
All right. I think we were going to give the applicant an opportunity to respond to the public comment as presented last time. I don't believe, does anybody remember? Sorry, it's been 2 weeks. I don't remember if we allowed for that or not.
You did.
I did. Okay, great.
Yes.
You stated that you would. And Mr. Mayor, if you would, if they're in attendance, you may want to also promote John Diet and Eric Marquez.
John Diet looks like he's a call-in number again. I believe it's *6, Mr. Diet, to raise your hand to allow me to promote you. There's just a lot
It's
of.
going to be the number that ends in 5463.
There's a 2463. There's a 5463. That is funny. Okay, there we go. Does the applicant have any other additional comments to respond to the public comment that was last week? That
Yes, thank you very much, Your Honor. We appreciate your time. First, we're just respectfully requesting that you have an open and clear mind on this application. We have a brand new, materially different application. Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of this by 4-1 this year, which is a big change from last year where it was a recommendation of denial by a vote of 7-0. So that really shows that we have had a huge change on how we've responded to site-specific considerations. Now for the rebuttal comments, I'm going to speak a little bit, and then Eric Marquez as well as John Diet. So, as far as some of the comments, there was one comment that there are no other projects close to hotels. Green Solution was one we didn't present at the last meeting at 51701 Highway 6. It's located at the front of the Fireside Mobile Home Park, which they, by the way, have a lot more residential units on the site with the mobile homes. Red Mountain Inn is located less than 300 feet away with 4 hotels in the area. Ponderosa Lodge, Affordable Inns, Hanging Lake Inn, Roadway Inn. Even the manager of a major historic hotel in the city is in support of this application and has provided a letter into that fact, which was presented in the last meeting. We also have had approval of hotel owners in Glenwood Meadows for the Glenwood Meadows store that are about as close to the proposed store as this hotel to the north. There is no rule that says you cannot locate a retail marijuana store next to a hotel. If it was, it would be codified. And there are retail stores located in close proximity to hotels and motels throughout the city. There's also a concern on impacts to tourism and small town character. Maybe those concerns were there about 5 to 6 years ago, but retail marijuana stores do not, it's been shown, retail marijuana stores do not harm tourism. Tourism's up everywhere, or the images of towns. Lots of mountain towns have this setting and context. I'd also note that Double Black Dispensary, it was also known as Doctor's Garden, is located in the most intensive and tourist-oriented area of the city with residential units above it, commercial activity, and hotels in close proximity. So if this store is compatible and the other stores have been found to be compatible throughout the city, our store certainly is compatible. There's also a comment from the hotel's attorney that there are none that have multifamily uses and consider the unique aspects of this property. This really isn't a multifamily property. There's a duplex apartment attached on the back, and then there's a freestanding apartment at the rear of that square building at the back. So 3 units total. And of these 3 units, all the residents have no concerns like the attorney or the hotel owners do. We have affidavits from tenants within all 3 of those apartments, contrary to what was testified at the last meeting by the attorney. One person rents both apartments that are adjacent to the store, Faba Espinoza. Those are apartments 2 and 3, and you have an affidavit that's in the record. And then apartment number 1, which is a detached building, has the last name, I believe it's Topete. That is the apartment that I believe has someone that lives in it that works over at the hotel. It's not attached to the building, as I think was stated. And we have, again, an affidavit in support of the store. Once again, there's nothing that says you can't have a store in with multifamily or residential housing, and it exists other places in the town. The attached apartments won't be impacted by odor due to the extensive odor mitigation, vapor barriers, and when the current tenants move out, the units will be rented out to Kind Castle employees. And in this store, Kind Castle is only bringing in prepackaged products from the Glenwood Meadow store, and this will really limit odor from a typical store that has product weighing and handling. There's also a parking concern. And sorry, this was a statement from the attorney about a condition on the fence being built. We are fine with the condition on the fence as requested by the hotel attorney. There was also a request by the attorney that if any of the conditions of approval be violated, that the license be revoked. There are rules in the city for when retail licenses can be revoked or not revoked. And we want to be treated the same as other stores with the same rules and enforcement actions. We do not want special rules that would hinder the business over another business. And of course, the store will have to comply with the conditions of approval per the current city regulations. Compatibility came up, concerns also came up. I think we addressed that extensively, and that we've shown that there's been a lot of similar contexts. And then the last comments I want to talk about are the police chief comments, which were very surprising, raising safety concerns. First and foremost, in your process, the city has a referral process for applications where they're sent out to all the city departments and agencies, and you get comments back. The police department did not provide any. The fire department did not provide any. So there were no safety concerns with the referral of this application. So the police chief is approached by property owners, and all of a sudden he's compelled to write a letter outside the referral process to you as the council, which I respect, but it's certainly not a part of the normal city process, at least as we understand it. So as far as his concerns, we will improve the safety of the property with building code compliant commercial spaces. We'll have an alarm system in the commercial spaces, and the residential and the commercial units may also have to have sprinkler systems based on this change. We're not sure with that yet, but if they're required, we'll install it. The residential unit should already have the required safety systems of smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors, and parking and access will be significantly improved. The comment about one pot shop per populations, again, there's no limit in the city. I'm not sure where that came from. And the city council elected not to set a limit. So these public comments at this stage were a little surprising and quite shocking. In terms of the access, comment on access being fettered, we are approving this access, and I'm going to share my screen real quick. We're improving this access today, and we, one good thing that has come out of the police department comments is we're considering a revision to the plan. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
I gave the thumbs up. You can see. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we have two plans that have been presented. This is the plan that we initially came up with, which was, basically the angled parking, getting rid of the sign, so we'd have 4 angled spaces and then 3, 4, 5, 6. City engineering staff came in with a hand-drawn plan that we followed to develop a plan that had this configuration. So we basically have 2 plans for you to consider. One is the first plan we presented, which is this, or this. This was recommended by your city engineering department staff, which provides a 24-foot wide access in here. We are willing to eliminate a parking space that was right here. I've actually shown it off now. That was a compact space. And this provides an access that's much wider. It's about 28 feet roughly between this point and here. And this allows cars to come out and pull out smoothly. And our traffic engineer is going to comment on this a little bit later. The reduction and elimination of one space is not a big deal because the store only is required to provide 5 spaces. And we're still providing 11 total. Well, there's 6, 7, 8, 9, plus 2 in the back, so 11 total. So we're well over double the parking requirement still on the site with the elimination of the space right here. And this access works better from a backing movement standpoint than the angled spaces. But if you want, to go back to something like that, we're more than willing to, but we'd rather follow what your city engineer is stating as well. So again, it's about a 65-foot increase in the travel lane from 17 feet to 28 feet. And then in terms of the emergency situation where the police chief was talking about 5 vehicles being parked during vehicle hours because they couldn't park in the back and it's a busy business, that situation exists today. It would exist with any business here, not just our stores. So any business in the city that has full parking lot that's busy and you have emergent situation, the police are going to pull in and they're going to park where they park and they're going to deal with public safety like they deal with public safety. That's not going to be any different for a bank or a grocery store or any other use. And this plan, we feel, provides a nice staging area should they have to, again, pull up here. No fire truck is ever going to pull back here. Never. There's no way that would ever happen. They're either going to stage out front or they're going to stage over here and bust through the fence. Fire departments do what they do really well. They may even stage out on Grand Avenue if there was a fire. But as far as police access and staging during emergent events, there's still enough room for an ambulance to drive back here and park. That's not going to be an issue. This will not be cluttered anymore. So again, we really weren't sure about where that comment came from because this is true of any store in the area. If you have a full parking lot, there's not a requirement for emergency parking, and you're going to have a congested parking lot when you have a major event. So we don't believe the residential units are a safety burden at all. We also really question, and I mentioned this earlier, why the police chief is weighing in on this, the currently effective laws that allow for retail stores as proposed with no limits on number. Market saturation is not a public safety concern. And just too, as well, it'd be interesting to know as you weighed in on other applications in the city. Last but not least, there are certain comments that have been coming in on this that aren't applicable to an application when the city's revised its regulations. There were recent conversations on the limits of number of stores that would not adopt it, and now we're getting comments on it, and we really don't think that's appropriate. Was that comment made by the police chief during that discussion? And this is now popping up again. And again, during that process of the last code amendment on stores, did someone say they shouldn't be allowed next to hotels? It just seemed like some of these comments are a little off the topic. And in my conclusion, my stuff, this proposes a single tenant that will significantly improve a blighted property that will help improve the character of the area, not degrade it. The proposed store will solve a lot of hotel problems, such as parking on their property. And then the facade improvements, which have been shared with you, are a huge improvement to this area. You will get this if you approve the store. If you don't approve the store, these improvements are not there. As far as the traffic comments, I'm going to turn that over to Eric Marquez to comment, and I thank you for the time for rebuttal.
Thanks, Chris. So the first thing I want to respond to is the comments generally. One of the things that we have to review as a traffic engineer is safety. And it's not uncommon when we go to public hearings that we hear a lot of concern from the public about safety. And for the most part, those are things that we've evaluated. We have very strict standards that all engineers have to stick to in our evaluations, because traffic is kind of a unique type of engineering in that it's it's very important for all engineers to do the same thing consistently. We don't have a whole lot of freedom that you might see in hydraulics or hydrology, for example, where you have some options to choose certain variables. We just don't have that. We have formulas that we have to use and guidelines and data that we all share and that everybody's required to use. So generally speaking, when we're talking about safety, we're using AASHTO standards, and those then are adopted by CDOT, which then get adopted by local municipalities as well. And in our evaluation for safety, it meets all the qualifications for the safe access. And I think that what I want to point out is not so much what the concerns are about traffic, what they're saying, it's what is missing. I didn't see in any of the comments that anybody said there's been a horrible accident or I had a fender bender. There's no mention of anybody having any firsthand knowledge of accidents at this location. So it's obviously working. It works well, or somebody would have had a comment about it. So I think that just supports what we're trying to say, that this site, though it is tight, and though it seems like it's kind of cluttered, that's pretty common for a lot of parking lots in downtown areas throughout the country. And as drivers, we've learned to negotiate around that. So that's the first thing I want to comment about. The other thing that I think is important is that we've taken a look at the new proposed parking plan that Chris presented, and on his presentation he showed that there were 4 parking spaces on the south, and he took one out so that there were only 3. The parking plan actually works with the 4 spaces, and in addition to that, it's unlikely that those 2 parking spaces on the south side on the east would be used as heavily as the rest, because they're smaller and people they use those smaller parking spaces as a last resort. So that's a perfect place for them. So our evaluation of the parking configuration using our vehicle tracking software shows that having 4 spaces on the south side, the parking lot still functions adequately. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Okay. Thank you very much. Bring it back.
I'd like to, could I say a few words? This is John Diet.
Absolutely. Jump in.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Just a few quick words. I won't keep much of your time. Thank you all for just letting us have a chance to at least get the application in front of you once more. Certainly a lot of work has gone into this to put this in front of you again today. It's been another year, certainly another year of my life that we put on the line here to conduct business here. I certainly wouldn't do it if I didn't believe in the location. I just wanted to stress that we have quite a bit of support. There have been 16 petitions or letters of support in some form, which includes 4 affidavits, which of course some of those affidavits are the adjacent residents. And I'd like to point out also that the person that was working for the hotel they were stressing the last time, she didn't sign anything. She didn't sign anything. Well, we didn't ask her to sign anything because it's not moral. It's unethical to ask somebody who we know her employer is the hotel next door. It's just not an appropriate thing to throw somebody in the middle of this. So she was there when everyone was signing documents, but I didn't even think to ask her that because we wouldn't. I mean, it's just totally inappropriate to put someone's job on the line and put them in an awkward situation like that. And I'm sure she was approached by the hotel, which it sounded like it was. And I'm sure she said, no, I didn't sign it. Well, I mean, anybody would. And so, you know, when your employer is approaching you like that, I just think it was an unfair situation to put that person in from the hotel's perspective. But from our side, we didn't want to put them in that situation and ask them to do that. So I just wanted to recap a couple things that I think the parking is more than substantial. It's about double what's required. There is 22nd Street parking nearby now. There's so much that we can do now for my other stores that we're pre-packaging products. So, you know, this floor plan was done a year ago at this point, that since then we have really moved towards pre-packaging a lot, particularly for this site, which annihilates all the odor concern, because in the back is where we would have been doing that pre-packaging, where you're taking bulk amounts of cannabis flower and you're packaging it up. So when we're bringing in the flower, the product that's already packaged, that eliminates a huge portion of the emissions, the odor emissions. But anybody even mentioning odor at this point is a little bit ridiculous. I think we all have to concur at least that much, because I've gone above and beyond with vapor barriers. The capacity of these odor mitigation systems can cleanse a facility 16,000 square feet. And so I went above and beyond just so we could annihilate any even discussion of odor. It's just not even an issue. And so I think that's just been clearly demonstrated. The tenants that occupy the adjacent wall, though, they've signed off that they don't mind if there's a cannabis business. They support it, in fact. And so if anyone ever moves out there, which we don't have any plans for that, to be honest, but if somebody does, I'd love to rent the apartment myself for employees. And so I think, just to give you some perspective on the future there of what may happen if there's a turnover there, we're ready to jump on those units, but certainly not displace anybody, because, you know, if they're there for 10 years, great. They've already signed a petition of support. So I think that it's just, and I understand that marijuana is a sensitive subject. And I know that, you know, the same song and dance sort of is that what about the town's image and tourism? But that was, like Chris says, that was 5-6 years ago. And granted, perhaps there was a lot of validity in that concern many years ago, but that's long been proven false. Tourists that come into Glenwood, how many marijuana stores do they pass to even arrive at this hotel next door? Multiple. So obviously anybody can see that it's not impacting tourism in any way. I respect their concerns, but frankly, we have really mitigated the issues that the hotel has mentioned, whether it's during this process or privately to the property owner. We've totally annihilated those issues. The signage, and I don't know if they really understand that, but all the key issues have been mitigated. No one on earth could do more than what we've done in this application. Nobody would have proposed this. And I want to stress that we've done right out only here. No one else is offering that. That won't be a factor if we don't get this store approved. Whoever else occupies the building, if it's not us, they're not going to do right out only. And so what we've done to control the traffic and also, you know, right in, right out, that's a huge thing. In my opinion, I think everyone agrees with that that's a huge win for that intersection. The safety there, I turned out of it the other day and I thought, wow, I'm glad I'm proposing this right out. I'll be totally frank with you. I'm in some ways glad that you denied it the first time, because it really gave us a chance to revamp this application. We did enormous amounts of improvement since the last time. So perhaps it happened for a reason. But we've done a lot now to improve this. Like Chris says, the facade, it's going to look amazing there. It's a tremendous upkeep to that uplift to that area of Grand Avenue.
Mr. Mayor, may I interject a point of order?
Yes, please, Charlie.
This is a rebuttal to comments from the public. I certainly think that he's had a chance to rebut it. And I appreciate his passion for his project, but this is not rebuttal, and I would like to get out with council discussion.
I appreciate that point of order. John, do you have any other final thoughts?
Sorry if I took up too much time there. I just wanted to make some key points there. No, I think that's it. I appreciate the time.
Thanks, Charlie. Thank you, Chris, Eric, and John as well. Okay, I will now bring it back for council comments and/or a motion. All right, Charlie, go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. You know, I've had concern about this project. The first time it was brought before us, the same concern is there, although there's certainly been a lot of improvements. And I do appreciate all the work of Mr. Hawkins and Mr. Marquez and Mr. Dix, I hope I have the name right, in what they're trying to do here. I guess I read the memo from our police chief as being a fairly significant issue. It kind of dovetails into the issues I've had about safety and getting in and out. And I think the concessions they made about putting a fence between their property and the motel's property is certainly a significant one, because I looked at the videos of the people crossing over and I thought that's an easy solution. I appreciate them doing that. But we get into police and fire protection, and I'm not sure it's a good solution given the property, but I have concerns about it. And, you know, the traffic that's been there historically, I think is probably less than will be brought in by the marijuana operation, although I think Mr. Marquez has opined otherwise. And I've read his reports and I appreciate his expertise. I just, those are my concerns. And I guess I take a little offense on Mr. Hawkins, and I hate to say this, but I take a little offense at you attacking the police chief for doing something untoward in the process. If he has concerns about it when they come up, that's his job, is to let us know. So I just give you that comment. So anyway, that's my thoughts on the project.
Thanks, Charlie. I guess I'll give my comments. I don't see any hands up right now. I think before we readdressed the number and density of marijuana shops, this is the application that I think council a year ago was like, wow, this doesn't feel right. P&Z voted to deny it. Staff recommended approval. But based on this application, we went through a long conversation about number, density, all kinds of things. So I feel the time we denied this application and potentially P&Z on moral grounds. We didn't like marijuana. It made us feel kind of icky. But then we addressed it. This council did, the staff did, really brought it back. We gave this applicant a laundry list of things at that time of why we didn't like it: the parking, the egress, the people living in the back. I mean, everybody had a reason, and I wouldn't say we gave them hoops to jump through unnecessarily. I believe everybody felt that they were legitimate, but they did. They checked off every single one of those things, and I think that's now reflected in the 4-1 vote that P&Z flipped from 7-0 to deny to a 4-1 approve. I think they also made that approval based on that we now have community clarity in what is a good business and a bad business, or how many of these bad businesses we allow. So I think if we address this moral question, we should not be making moral judgments. And I think, I think to a certain extent, when we've seen some of the letters and some of the comments saying we've had enough, or how many is enough, and one of those comments was from our police chief of, are there not enough of these dispensaries in town? That is a moral judgment. That's not a public safety judgment. That is not something that I do agree with the applicant that I think the public safety aspect of it, absolutely we should consider. But I think the moral question has been answered. If it hasn't, then we should do this for every applicant. We should have asked Sharma Phillips where she goes to church, what charity she gives to, before we approved her 45 days. And we don't do that. That's not the way we should approve applicants or projects, based on a moral standard that, again, we have addressed. The parking issue, if this is not enough parking for this application, then what would we ever approve? I don't understand. If we can't have this level of parking, then this place is destined to just crumble and be a nothing burger, or at some point we'll have to bury parking, require parking to be buried under it. We have so many vacant retail stores right now in the community. For this applicant to be putting significant amounts of money to really make a really nice looking building, I think, regardless of if we have enough, the market's going to wash that out. The market's going to wash these guys out in 6 months or 6 years, but what will remain, and I don't wish that for you applicants, but if that does happen, we'll have a beautiful building left over, which will be more attractive to a future tenant. And I think that that is an improvement that the community should see. We saw that with the marijuana facility, I think by the Charcoal Burger. So I think because we have overwhelming support by P&Z, staff recommends it. I think if we vote to deny, that we will in part be doing it because we still don't like the marijuana aspect of things. And I think that's just a really unprofessional way for us to be making findings. I don't know that I want to ascribe that to folks. That's just how I feel. So for that reason, if there's a motion at some point to approve, I will be supporting this application. Paula, go ahead.
I can see there's been a lot of work put into this and it's great design. I'm kind of going to play off your marijuana ickiness, Jonathan, because I think marijuana is part of, it kind of has that reputation, but I also understand the concerns with marijuana usage from the aspect of kids. And this is where I'm kind of drawing the line of, what is our small town character? And when people tell me our small town character is to fill in density and it's a good fit for, the other, with the other businesses around in that area, my concern is our small town character is also there's a large neighborhood across the street on Grand Avenue, the Highland Park area. There are 3 schools in the vicinity. So it's not just one school within 500 feet. And so my everything that I've seen that has been done by Chris and John and Eric, I applaud that, but I still kind of feel, is this the right thing for this neighborhood? Does it really fit that characteristic of what surrounds these businesses in this community? So at this point, although I applaud what you guys have done, I'm just having a hard time saying, yes, let's put this here in this particular vicinity. And I have to say, in other cases, I really do look at that because I have approved other locations here in town. So that's kind of what my feeling is right now.
Thanks, Paul. Other comments? Shelley and then Steve. Steve's having a tough time raising his hand, so we'll get to you, Steve, right after Shelley.
I don't have a problem if Steve wants to go ahead of me. I have a question. I did appreciate the letter from our police chief, and he raised a couple of concerns that I wasn't aware of, and that is, the concern about access to the back of the building. So I appreciate the applicant taking out that extra parking space, if that can help that. And I'm wondering, Trent, if there will be a requirement maybe that area is specifically striped for no parking so that you do have access to that back. If there might be a way to make sure that stays open. And then the other concern that was raised by Chief Darris's letter was that the access from the apartments, breaking into the facility and then robbing. And it sounds like that happened in a previous incident. So have there been, special precautions taken in that wall construction to make that extra difficult? I think I remember there are going to be cameras inside the building that would probably help, but those type of concerns, have those been mitigated? And I guess that question goes to Trent.
I can't speak to the wall barrier to prevent entry from the residential unit, but I can speak to the parking. I mean, that is certainly something that we can require in terms of no parking or striping of that area to prevent that from occurring.
And I think, Shelley, we could make that a condition for approval if you felt strongly about that.
Okay, yeah.
Any other comments, Shelley?
No, that's all I have right now.
Okay.
Thanks.
Counselor Davis.
I move to uphold the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission and approve with conditions the special use permit for a retail marijuana establishment in the M1 Mixed Use Corridor District with the findings and conditions as outlined on pages included the applicable pages of the staff report packet here, also provided below for reference of the May 5th, 2021 staff report packet.
I will second that motion. Steve, if you would be willing to add a condition that they strike the parking so that there's good access to that 12-foot driveway down the south side of the building.
Given.
All right, been moved and seconded. Further comments on the motion? Okay. Ryan, let's call the question.
Mr. Mayor, before he calls a question, point of order, I don't think it's necessary for Ryan to call Ingrid Wusso's name. She was not here. She's absent from the meeting. We know she's not voting. So could we not do that, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Stepp,
No.
Counselor Hershey,
No.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Willman,
No.
Mayor Godis,
Yes.
Counselor Kaup,
Yes.
and my apologies, Mayor Pro Tem Willman. And it's tied 3-3.
Which means no. Thank you.
All right. Thank you to the applicant.
Because this is a land use hearing, I would like to have the motion in the alternative as well. This is one of those tough things where it's, it's a denial because you can't move it forward. I don't know if you got, or let me back up, not necessarily a motion, but I want to clarify that no council member has an alternative motion to proffer on this, or that, there was something missing that one of you guys wanted, just so that we're clear for the record.
Councilor Willman.
I guess question, Carl. My impression of the tie vote is we did not approve it, but we haven't denied it either. Isn't that right?
That is, and I guess the reason I'm leaving it out there is if there is something that would shift one of you guys' votes, or if you want to continue this item until you have a full slate with Ingrid here as well, if she'd be willing to listen to the hearing and move to continue it to see if you can find a resolution. On a legislative matter, a 3-3 and not advancing is one thing. On a land use matter, it's different.
Yeah, that was my concern, is it wasn't actually a denial. I'd move to table this to our next meeting and ask Councilwoman Husa to review the tape of this this part of the hearing and take a vote with all 7 of us.
I'll second that.
Been moved by Charlie, seconded by Shelley to continue this hearing to the next meeting. Any comments on that motion? All right, Ryan, let's call the question.
All right, Counselor Hershey,
Yes.
Counselor Kaup,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Stepp,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Willman,
Yes.
Mayor Godis.
Yes.
Passes 6-0.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you, Trent. Tony, do you have a point of order? Number 13? Is that the point of order? Okay.
I didn't want to bother you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to remind you.
No, I appreciate that. 90% of the time I would have forgotten. We have decided to move item number 26 up to our next agenda item. This is the COVID-19 update and face covering extension. I'll lead it off and just say, I think we should revoke anything that is not in line with CDC and state guidelines or recommendations. And I think that we should encourage people who are unvaccinated to continue to wear masks, but not make it a requirement by special order or law.
I second that.
Is that a motion?
That is a formal motion.
I will second it.
I thought I just did.
Paula did. Paula got ahead of you. Any further comment on this motion? Councilor Hershey.
You're muted.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Well, I said everything important. I just wanted to say just very briefly, Mr. Mayor, I agree with you 110%. A lot of people on both sides I know are emotional about this issue. I don't think there's anything that prohibits anybody from wearing a mask wherever you want. So if that's your choice, I think that's appropriate. But I think to be the most important thing about this and what the staff report said is that we be consistent. And I think that's very important. Thank you.
Thanks. I would say maybe this is slightly outside the motion, but I would also say that I would strongly encourage our staff who is not vaccinated yet to wear their masks, because if you're not vaccinated, then you are still able to spread that to even people who have been vaccinated. So I just want to take this opportunity to strongly encourage staff to do that who have yet to be vaccinated. Okay, my soapbox is over. Moved by myself, seconded by Paula. Ryan, let's call the question.
Okay. Mayor Godus,
Yes.
Councillor Davis,
Yes.
Councillor Hershey,
Yes. Yes.
Councillor Kaut,
Yes.
Councillor Stepp,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Willman.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Mr. Mayor, can I also say that ugly guys like Charlie and I should be encouraged to wear masks as well, just for the future. But for other reasons.
We'll take that into advisement. I have my own homegrown mask actually for that specific reason. Item number 14 now, appointment to Historic Preservation Commission. This would be Tony or
Yes.
Gretchen.
And Gretchen, are you bringing her on?
I am.
I'll wait a second then.
Excuse me. So with Councilor Hershey's permission, I'll just briefly explain that we've got 2 seats open on the Historic Preservation Commission. Patricia Stark, sorry, she is currently serving as an alternate and she applied for a regular seat on the commission. And then we received an application from Grant Stevens to the commission as well. So I had the opportunity to interview Mr. Stevens, and he is a former employee of the National Trust for Historic Preservation, so is certainly capable of and will contribute a lot to the Preservation Commission. So I'm encouraging his appointment as an alternate and recommending that Patricia Stark be moved up to a regular member.
Gretchen, I apologize that we weren't able to coordinate an interview, but I think that this is an important board. They do a lot of great work, and this is appropriate to move somebody up and to appoint the other person.
Thank you, Councilor Hershey. Appreciate
But
that.
I am sorry, Gretchen, about
No.
this.
We did have trouble. I recognize everybody is very busy. So
I think Mr. Whitman knows that there's some issues in my office where I work and some people leaving, and I've been covering from Rangeley to Aspen, so I apologize. Thank you.
Wow.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I guess I could make that motion, Mr. Mayor, to approve these appointments. Does it have to be more specific than that, Carl? I'm sorry.
No, I think that would be fine.
Thank you so much.
Motion to approve as presented by staff.
Thank you, Shelley.
Been moved by Tony, seconded by Shelley. All I'll just say, not to be a fly in the ointment, I'm sure these are great applicants, but we used to interview every applicant for every board and commission. And we did get away from that by saying, as long as I had the recommendation of a council person who is interviewed it, I'm sure they're great. I'm probably not going to approve it. I'll probably lose 5-1. But I do think it's important that we maintain some integrity in our interview process by having a city council member. And Councilor Hershey, if you're slammed, I would have been happy, or somebody could fill in, but I do think that that's important. And that's not a judgment on anybody. Life gets busy, but I think in light of that, I don't want to go down the slope where we have staff approving people. I think this is something we should still maintain as our responsibility.
Oh, and I appreciate that. And I did a little research. It was my fault, and I take responsibility. And if you choose to vote no because of that, I understand.
And be clear, I'm not voting no because of you specifically. I'm just voting no because of, I think it's important.
And in the future, I'll take that in mind. And if Shelley or Paula or whoever, I'm not picking on them, but or whoever is available, or Steve, I will turn that over to them. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments? Okay, Ryan, let's call the question.
All right. Councillor Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Godis,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilmot,
Yes.
Councillor Stepp,
Yes.
Councillor Kaut,
Yes.
Councillor Hershey.
Oui, monsieur.
It passes 5-1.
Thank you, Gretchen, so much.
Thanks, and Gretchen, my comment.
Mayor, can we move the,
Sorry, hold on one second.
sorry, go ahead, John.
I just wanted to say my comment was not at all in reference to your excellent recommendation or your judgment. I had nothing to do with that. I just wanted to be clear. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I didn't notice this until just now. We have the tourism board, and it's after the council ward proposal for council. I would like to move the tourism board up and take that next. Ms. Langer is here. She sat through several meetings when we waited to the very end and then continued these promotions. And I think we had agreed we put it at the beginning of an agenda. So if we could move it above the next item, I would appreciate that. So I move or ask that we, if everyone agree, we move item 15 next and then do the council after that.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Sorry. Motion passes apparently 5-1 with Tony. Yeah, okay. Lisa, you're promoted. You're on. Is there anybody else that I need to promote from the attendees?
Hi.
Hello.
You need me to go over anything? I think you have everything in your council packets. My recommendation is to adjust the ordinance to allow for the citizen seats to may have an interest in a tourism business, and then to promote a couple of our alternates into the 2 empty seats. We've got a tourism seat available and a citizen seat available.
Carl, can I ask a question? Do we need to change the code? Because I can't remember. I know I should remember this. I spent a lot of time on this a few months ago and I forgot.
What I was going to handle is that if you guys are inclined to appoint in this fashion, I will catch the code up to you, basically. Because this is not like one of those legislative decisions that are hotly contested in the community right now. So essentially, I was going to have you appoint, and then I would catch up with a cleanup ordinance on the next meeting.
Any comments, thoughts? Councilor Stepp.
I'll move to approve the change that Lisa has said to the fulfilling the different roles on the tourism board, and move the 2 people up into the positions to fill out the tourism board.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Paula, seconded by Charlie. Shelley, I didn't know if you had your hand up to.
I'm sorry, Shelley had her hand up. Maybe I should have not done that. I apologize, Shelley.
Sorry.
I had my hand up for a comment, so go ahead and, yeah.
So it's moved by Paula, seconded by Charlie, comments by Shelley.
Okay. And I appreciate what the tourism board is bringing to us, and thanks, Lisa. I understand that you guys have had trouble. It's been a hard time for the board to fill those seats. But I also am familiar with the background of why that was created and why that was put in place. And it was to have a voice for the residents and citizens of the community that are not involved in tourism, so that they have a voice in how the town is marketed and that type of thing. So I can't support this right now, but just wanted to clear that out there.
Go ahead, Lisa.
And what I wanted to point out is that this does not preclude a citizen from being in one of those seats. It just allows for a little more flexibility.
Any other comments or questions? We have a motion by Councilor Stepp, a seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Willman. Ryan, let's call the question.
All right, Counselor Stepp,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
You're muted, Councilor Davis. Yeah, that he voted in the affirmative. Let the record show.
okay. Mayor Pro Tem Willman,
Yes.
Mayor Godus, Counselor Hershey,
Yes.
and Counselor Kaut.
Wait, I didn't get to vote because Jonathan said yes for me. Can we do that again? I say yes.
And I say no.
Okay, right. So can we call that question again? I was a little confused.
We have a yes from Steve, a yes from Charlie, a yes from Paula, a yes for you, a no for me, and a from
No
Council.
from Shelley.
And no,
It passes 4-2.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Send more pictures. Oh, she left.
All right. Next up, I believe, is item, not even going to try. Award proposal for council chambers. COO Steve Boyd.
Yep, I can take this one. Hi, everybody. You guys will all recall that we went out to bid for council chambers upgrades, mostly to the technology in there. We got 4 bids that came back to us that were all from good firms that were qualified. 2 of them were within our budget. We've been working with the low bidder to try to get something together. You can't hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
Oh.
I can. I'm sorry. Can other people not hear Steve?
Just barely.
No, other people can not.
I can hear just fine.
Okay.
I can hear you, Steve.
Okay. Good. Okay. So
Yeah,
I think Alyssa's specs were right on the money. This is a simple solution. It's durable. It's functional enough to get you guys everything that I think you want. You know, Ford is a very credible vendor. They've been in business for a long time. They've got lots of clients that are municipalities like us. They've got clients on the western slope over here. The price came in actually a little bit better than we thought it would come in. So I feel like we're in pretty good shape. If you guys say yes tonight to award this to Ford, a couple things we still have to work out, but I'm confident we can get there. And I think we can have this implemented by the July 15th meeting. But with that, I'm happy to take any questions. The vendors are here with us if you guys have technical questions or anything.
Did we put in the hot tub, or is that not an option?
Hot tub is in.
Okay.
Wet bar is in, absolutely.
And we do have budget for staff to clean the hot tub.
Yep, sure we do.
That's very important. Councilor Kopp.
I don't think we need a hot tub. If we want to do that, we'll just move our meetings to the hot pool and hot springs and have them there.
Lisa would like that, Shelley, and we could promote tourism while during our meeting.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I had a question on, and I didn't see this specifically, Steve. we had a little discussion on what's our setup going to be like for each individual counselor at the meeting, or P&Z member, whoever's sitting up there.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, you might want to promote Alyssa. I think she's out there as well. But the only thing we're really changing in chambers is that we're replacing the podium with a table that hopefully will move to give us some flexibility where people can come and sit and address council. But where Deborah sits and Carl sits and where Ryan sits and where the counselors sit will really be the same as it is now.
But I just mean from the IT setup, because before we had wires that my legs were always getting tangled up in, and little boxes with buttons to push, and we talked about getting rid of the screens. That's what I'm talking about, the IT.
Gotcha. Sorry, I'll kick that one to Alyssa if that's all right.
Okay. Thanks.
So I'm not seeing Alyssa.
No, she's in.
She's in.
Oh, she snuck in. I guess you have the keys.
I am here. I'm trying to get my video going.
Great background.
Is that all right? Yeah. All right. My kid had a concert, sorry. Yeah, so what your guys' setup is going to look like is we are going to level that countertop. The monitors will be gone. We will have laptops that we can lend out if anybody needs a laptop of assorted sizes, 13-inch to 17-inch. And each council member will have basically a touch screen with a speaker and a microphone. And so you'll have the ability to hear kind of close to you, as well as you have your microphone that you can mute and unmute. And then the screen is going to be for your voting. So you'll have that voting system there. And we will have the ability to share any computer in the room. So if you do need to present something up on the screen for some reason, you'll be able to do that as well from any laptop or a laptop you bring in.
Okay, great. Thanks, Alyssa.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Just Alyssa, thank you. I just one kind of follow-up question. I know it sounds weird, but are the mics for us going to be hot all the time or off all the time?
We can potentially make a choice with that, I expect. And I can potentially push that to our engineer, who would have a better answer for you. So let me, I am not a host on this login that I'm on right now. So if we can let Jim Post speak, that would be wonderful.
I will see what I can do.
I think he just maybe got promoted.
Oh,
here he is.
Who's running this thing? This is great.
Hello, everybody. My apologies. I am also up in the mountains, but I am literally in the boonies. So my screen is very likely pixelated and I am about 4 seconds behind you. I will apologize for that. So yes, actually every position will have their own individual mute button. So you will have the ability to go live. We can actually also allow for the control system of the program to have somebody controlling the meeting and mute those microphones for you as needed. Our idea for the control system, though, is simplicity, as easy as possible. Our goal is anybody can walk into that room and hit a button and you are all off and running. So we can add that, and I would promote that as a technical page and a secondary for somebody technical to run the meeting if you'd like that. But ideally, it is a very simple push to mute on your panel, which, as Alyssa was explaining, is an all-in-one station. It will give you your own individual speaker, microphone, and voting position.
And Jim, I think you answered my question, but maybe I missed it because I'm not a tech person at all. But when I'm sitting there at the dais, is my microphone going to be on all the time, or will it be off unless I want it on? Because I would prefer the latter.
Off unless you want it on. That will be our intention.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Absolutely.
I know there was a conversation, and I don't know why I recall this, and I possibly recall it incorrectly, but I think Councilor Davis had said he actually likes the lip because of pens and papers. You can put your phone down and people don't see the clutter. Am I ascribing that to the wrong person, or am I just remembering something way different?
No, that's how I remember it. And I am leaving that. It's going to just be that countertop kind of where you guys sit so that it can be flat.
I see. So there's no sunken in computer screens. That's what you mean by flat, not like the waterfall edge off the front.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's clarifying to me. That's
Thanks.
probably what I imagined. So any other comments, questions?
One other question, I think I know, but I want to make sure we're going to have overhead projectors that we look at and the audience can see at the same time, right? Not the stuff behind us or the stuff has to be on our screen.
Yeah, we'll have television.
That's absolutely, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Jim.
I'm sorry. That's absolutely correct. We have a dual facing display set up for you. Everything will be ceiling hung. It will meet ADA requirements. There will be a display that the dais will be able to view. On the other side of that will be another display, as well as 2 additional displays that will be audience facing. So in total, there will be 4. The dais will have 1 that will be clear to all of you.
Okay, thanks.
Since we have some tech people on this, when I upgraded from an iPhone 6 to an 11, and I hated that we didn't have a home button, and I hated that I couldn't plug my earphone jack in. But I was shocked at how quick I got over that, and now I don't even know what to do with the home button or earphone jack if I had one. I guess just from Alyssa and Jim, my question would be, are there things that just because we're stuck and we're like, oh, we want something slightly better, should we be jumping? Are we jumping from an iPhone 6 to an 8 when you guys are sitting there going like, oh gosh, they're missing this. We should jump them all the way to the 12. And what are those 12s and what are we missing that when the next election comes or 2 collections from now and we get some millennials and Gen Zs, they're going to go like, why do these old guys do it this way? And old girls, excuse me. What are those things that maybe we're missing or not being visionary enough?
In my opinion, you already made that jump, and I think it's been an eyesore for you or a bit of a headache for you. I think simplicity should have been there from the beginning. You're not doing post-production. You're not doing things where you need the recording studio equipment that you have currently, and I think simplicity is better. What we're providing is walk in the room, hit 2 buttons, one of which does one thing, the other one does another thing. What are you doing today? And everything starts going. You can get more technical, but our goal is not to go there. Get it onto YouTube, start your recording, get the meeting going. That is our intention. So no, in my personal opinion, I feel like you don't need to go beyond this. You're in a good position with this setup, scaling back from where you're currently sitting in. That's my opinion.
Thanks. I appreciate
This is no more full employment for Alyssa.
It's probably adequate employment.
I'm kidding.
I'm gonna say I could do my job without that room and be just fine. I promise.
I do have one more question. The complaint I do get from some people is that our YouTube videos, when we were live, they couldn't hear us well. Do we have upgraded microphones enough to pick us up a little bit better?
Absolutely. Yeah. And also a lot of it comes down to the engineering and the tuning of the room. I specifically engineered this room to be multi-sectional for the audio. It's what we call zoning, to give you better pickup on your microphones. You all have individual, the dais have individual speakers in front of them. You don't need loudspeakers overhead blaring that are going to cause pickup issues with your microphones. So by zoning those speaker areas, we actually are allowed to give you better pickup. And I have state-of-the-art audio processing in there, at minimal cost, by the way, that will actually help with that situation. So I am confident that it will actually be better than your current experience.
That's all I have. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Shelley.
I would like to make a motion if we're ready for that. Okay, I will move that we accept the Ford RFP submittal and award the contract for the council chamber technology upgrades to Ford AV.
Paula seconds it. Any further questions I'm sorry, any other comments or questions on the motion? Seeing none. Ryan, let's call the question.
Counselor Kaup,
Yes.
Counselor Hershey,
Yes.
Mayor Godus,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilman,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Stepp.
Yes.
It passes.
All right.
Thank you, Council.
We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Alyssa, you guys did an awesome job of hearing our incredible disparaging, or like disparate, not disparaging, disparate opinions and really getting something that worked for all of us. So thank you. That was really, really tough to do.
I really look forward to getting back to council chambers. So
Yeah, we could have it in a hut and I'd be happy.
Mr. Mayor, are we going to take a break around now or before after the next item?
You know, I believe the next item is kind of up a little bit on shipping containers, and we were scheduled for a break 20 minutes ago. I think that's going to be a little bit more than a 5-minute conversation. I would be happy to take a break. I'd be happy to do the next item. What's the will of council? Break now? Break now? I see some nods. All right, we'll take a 10-minute break. We'll come back here at 8:31. All right, we're ready to get back in. We got a long ways to go. Can people hear me? Okay. Hello, Tony. Brianne or whoever is running. There we are. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you.
All right. Everybody here? Everybody enough here? Okay. We're on item, I think it's 17, but what it is a second reading of ordinance number 2021-03, Glenwood Springs, amending title 070 sections a lot of the Glenwood Springs Municipal Code. This is the second reading. It's been pulled because there was direction, I believe, given to staff to come back with some of our proposed changes, I believe, to shipping containers. I think that was the main sticking point. I would love to promote someone to tell us, or to have someone tell us what they changed. And there we go. Gretchen.
Okay. Good evening again, all. So yes, at the May 6th meeting, you all considered a lot of code amendments to Title 070, which is the development code. And then you pulled for discussion, in particular, our proposed addition regarding certain regulations about outdoor portable storage containers, which are also known as shipping containers or Connex containers. In particular, you discussed the maximum height that we had proposed of 10 feet, and I think we're pretty solid there. But then you asked us to add an exception for a temporary use of containers for those projects that are not specifically tied to a building permit. So we did that. Then you asked us to prohibit the permanent use of these containers unless they are screened and designed or clad to meet our non-residential design standards. So we proposed some additional language there that requires that they incorporate architectural details and roof slopes that are compatible with the primary building or adjacent uses, and that the exterior materials be brick, natural, cultured stone, wood, stucco, and the colors that they be earth toned. And then that's all to the director's review. And then you also asked us to address the use of the existing containers and set some time frame for them, for those that are not permitted, to come into compliance. And so we've suggested 120 days. So I suppose with that, I'm going to open this up to questions that you might have of me. And I can, if you want, share my screen that shows these proposed changes and the additions.
I would appreciate that. I think that'd be helpful. Shelley has her hand while you're sharing that. Shelley, go ahead.
I just had a quick question for Gretchen, and I did get to read through the changes that you made on second reading, and I think those code changes looked good. They addressed all of my concerns. The only question I had is I was out at the new Glenwood Adventures location on the south end of town, and they have used shipping containers, and they had screening on them, and actually they looked quite nice. So it gave me a whole new kind of view and use of those containers. And my question was, would that kind of setup, is that your intent? Would that meet the code as we've revised it here for second reading?
Yes, and actually, we did review those containers when Ken Murphy initially proposed them. So they did receive some scrutiny through our department. And to be quite honest with you, those were the containers that I was thinking about when I proposed these amendments based on your comments from the last meeting.
Okay. Thanks, Gretchen. Are we ready for a motion, or we want to go through this first?
No, I think if all we're going to see is a red line version, we've already seen this. I was thinking we might see like examples and things. So that.
No, sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, you can quit sharing your screen.
Okay, I will.
Okay. I will
Go ahead, Shelley.
motion that we, City Council uphold the P&Z Commission's recommended approval to the amendments to Title 070 by adopting the Ordinance 3, Series 2021 on second reading as revised by staff in the red lines attached to in our packet.
There's a second. Paula? Okay. Been moved by Shelley, second by Paula. Further comments? No? Okay. I'll just say real quick, I think staff got it right. That's exactly what I was thinking. What Ken's did was right. What has been sitting out at Discount Tire for 8 years is wrong. And I think we nailed it. So Ryan, let's call the question.
All right, Counselor Hershey,
I couldn't unmute myself. I'm sorry. Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Willman,
Yes.
Counselor Stepp,
Yes.
Counselor Kaut,
Yes.
Mayor Godis.
Yes.
All right, it passes.
All right. Thanks very much, staff, Gretchen, everybody that worked on that. Item number, I think it's now 19, ordinance 2021-05 for CWCB loan. Who is this?
I'm trying to get it to come up here. All right, this is me. Hopefully this is a pretty short conversation, and I apologize to even have the conversation. When we went out and talked to the CWCB about the loan that they are providing to us for emergency water protection issues, mainly the pipeline and some tunnel work, they asked us for a resolution to have in hand along with the contract for that loan. Our bond counsel then chimed in after the resolution was completed and asked for it to be upgraded to an ordinance. So what we're asking for is approval of the ordinance along with the mayor's signature so that we can get this completed. Obviously, this will be a two-part conversation. It'll be on this as a discussion and on the next one as consent, hopefully. And then we'll get the information off to CWCB and we can get that loan finalized. So it's really just a clarification from a resolution to an ordinance based on our bond counsel's request.
Charlie, do you have a motion?
I would move for the approval of ordinance 2021-05, approval of the CWCB loan.
Is there a second?
This is a public hearing.
Oh, because it's an ordinance. Thank you.
Paula seconded it, but you do need to open it for a public hearing.
Anybody from the public comments on this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back for a motion. And we, is there a second?
Paula.
Paula has a second. Charlie has the first. Ryan, let's call the question.
All right. Mayor Godis.
Yes.
Counselor Davis.
Yes.
Counselor Hershey.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Willman.
Yes.
Counselor Stepp.
Yes.
And Counselor Cow.
Yes.
All right, 6-0.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks, man. Next item is the MOU regarding the residential development within RH District of Glenwood Meadows.
All right, I think that's going to be me. And if Chad Lee is in the attendees, he may want to come over. I don't know that I'm hoping that we don't need to spend that much time on this. So out of Glenwood Meadows, as you know, it's subject to an annexation and development agreement as originally conceived in the early 2000s. It provided for a number of things, including some caps on housing in various locations, as well as caps on commercial square footage. Over the years, it's been amended a couple of times, most recently, I believe in 2014 with the Fourth Amendment. That created some ambiguity that we wanted to clear up with regard to the residential districts, not the commercial districts. Just for reference, like where the lofts are is in the commercial districts. So one of the things we ran into, and I'm going to be very, very specific tonight because there is a pending land use application that relates to this, but we are not discussing that. That's going to the Planning Commission in a month. You guys are going to be seeing that later on. This is specifically addressing some infrastructure issues to allow that application to continue to move forward. Most importantly, it addresses the upgrade of the lift station out at Glenwood Meadows, which is at capacity. As part of this agreement, Glenwood Meadows LLC would, in addition to the regular sewer improvement fees that they would normally pay, they're going to pay for half of the upgrade to that lift station. We anticipate that to be at about $950,000 for that lift station. To upsize it to a size that would accommodate the absolute highest density build out that we could conceive out at Glenwood Meadows as a development. And so we've done this in a couple of other instances, a very similar deal. We did it over on the Beckley development where he paid for that, half of that upgrade cost. They're also going to be able to get some cost recovery against development that occurs later on. That will be memorialized when we do, if and when they were to get an approval, would be memorialized in the development agreement that would be recorded with the property. The important thing about having that cash up front is it allows us to plan, not only plan, but go out and get this plant starting to be manufactured, which is kind of critical because there again, in the event that they do get an approval, and even for purposes of efficiently handling what's going on with the lofts that's under construction right now, this allows us to get that lift station upgraded now. The other thing that it does is it addresses, provides for some traffic impact fees, if you will, related to each residential unit that is built, which also helps us where, we just completed a traffic study out there. We recognize that there are some improvements that need to be made to the road system in terms of intersection improvements. And this will kind of give us a template for how we deal with future development out there in terms of how we might negotiate for the costs of those improvements. And this will certainly get us started with that. Keeping in mind that the Glenwood Meadows development as a whole contributed about $19 million in the early 2000s between the construction of the 114 roundabouts in the 8th and Midland intersection, as well as providing a couple of $1 million towards improvements on Midland Avenue itself. So those were all, when you think about this project, we've had a long build out time, but there were significant investments made along the way. So this MOU really kind of addresses those things as they relate to there again, if you remember the annexation and development agreement, kind of the bubble maps with the residential sections. So that gets us, like I said, it addresses a couple of issues that we were facing out there and allows their application to continue moving forward. One of the real concerns we had is that, even if it were approved without this assistance with the lift station, we wouldn't be able to serve them because we simply don't have the capacity. And at this moment in time, we don't have the money. It's not on a priority list for us to upgrade that lift station. So this allows for that to ultimately occur. So with that, staff's recommending that you approve, ratify the the memorandum of understanding, recognizing that it will be incorporated into any final agreement, development agreement. There again, not talking about the land use application, but if it were approved, it would be incorporated at that point. So this is really there again, just talking about the infrastructure improvements and the monies that are needed for that. And it specifically calls out that approval of this has no impact on your review or approval of the larger land use application. So with that, happy to answer any questions. Chad Lee is also on the line representing Glenwood Meadows LLC.
Questions? Paula, then Shelley. Go ahead, Paula.
Carl, when I was reading through this, it talked about the change of the amount of housing that was allowed out there.
Well, it's there has been some ambiguity as to whether or not the caps on the number of residential units applied to just the residential bubbles on that annexation and development agreement, or whether it applied to the entire development. And what I would tell you is that based on the Fourth Amendment to the annexation agreement, which I think was approved in 2014, probably the most likely interpretation is that those residential caps only apply to the residential sections, which is where this particular development is going. It does not apply to the commercial sections. So that does create the opportunity that there could be probably 300 or 400 more units built out there in total beyond what is what's pending. So there's what's pending with this current land use application, which is 300. There's another 175 in the residential districts that cannot be apartments. And that would leave open primarily lot 14 and lot 10, which are the two empty lots in the commercial sections, which could develop as residential. We have no idea whether they would or not, but those would be the only two places that would have that potential.
And you were saying, just to confirm, and so I understand this right, if we don't get this lift station in, there's not going to be any building being done because we can't.
Right. I mean, the capacity of this current lift station, roughly at build out somewhere around when this section of the lofts goes up, there'd be a little bit of capacity beyond that. It's also in its lifespan cycle. I mean, it's been out there 20 years. Which is hard for me. I don't like to think about it in those terms because I feel like we just did that agreement, but it's been 20 years ago. So, there's some maintenance and upgrade that needs to be done. It would just need to get on our list of priorities. It just is not currently on there. And that would prevent any development because we just couldn't serve any of that development beyond what's kind of on the books now.
Thanks.
Shelley.
So Carl, will the new lift station, I mean, if you add up the units that are kind of listed in there, will the new lift station be designed to serve close to 900 units?
Yes, that was kind of what it's actually, I think it's designed at 11 or 1200 equivalent units of service capability. So Gretchen and Matt did a great job of figuring out what would be kind of the most intense build out we could see. And that's what we targeted for design.
Okay. And then I understand there's a cost reimbursement of
yeah. So, they're fronting about $475,000 potentially. Well, potentially in the sense that if the larger development gets approved, they're fronting $475,000. That has been reduced to $800 and change for every residential unit that comes online. So there would be the ability for them to recover that against any future residential development, obviously, that wasn't theirs on the cost recovery side, which is there again, not uncommon for us to have done on large projects like this.
So I'm sorry, I'm trying to understand that. they can recover it on residential units that were not theirs?
Yeah, so if another 400 or say another 400 units comes online, there is a per unit cost surcharge that we're going to put on that system improvement fee. That is part of the cost recovery that would be then flow through to this developer because they fronted that money.
Okay.
It's not on current existing units, it would be on new development.
Right. Okay. All right. And so also in just reading through the MOU, they talk about the residential for sale units that are required. Do we have any time commitment or, kind of things happening in concert to where we know when some of those units will come online? Because we've just had one product out there.
I mean, and the lesson that I've learned with this development, frankly, is that it's hard to predict how it's going to, what the timeline is it's going to build out on. Obviously in the marketplace right now, the thing that is most sought after are apartment units. And that's why we're seeing a number of proposals built around that. I do think everybody has identified that there is a gap in the for sale market as well. But that's really kind of a property owner decision on when that occurs. What I can tell you is that 175 is not going to be apartments, if and at whatever point that it develops.
Okay, but we don't have, there's no hook or requirement in the.
No, there's no requirement as a timeline as to when that would develop.
Okay.
Charlie.
Carl, my question is more about the agreement. In paragraph 3, it talks about traffic impact fee, and it said GM will fund an equitable share attributable to the 415 units. If I take 415 times 500, it's a little over $200,000. It's that. What does that respect to the cost of the improvements we may need to make? Because I know there's several not fully functional intersections, like better term.
Yeah, it's what that would do. So let me take a big step back. Is that frankly, underneath the ADA, there's no, because of the significant amounts of investment that were made on the front end, the ADA does not basically waives any future traffic mitigation for the entire development, unless there is a citywide traffic impact fee. So this is really a recognition on the developer's part that there are going to need to be some improvements made. And so this is frankly just a negotiated number. What it does do for us is get us through probably what is going to be the planning phase for those intersections. So we know what, essentially to get us to a shovel ready point. Terry is still working through, I think we have a traffic impact study. It has made some recommendations. I think Terry wants to really kind of dig into and make sure that she is comfortable with the recommendations that were made. The biggest one, really, the most expensive one, is signalization of the West Wolfson intersection. I think there's a little bit of debate internally as to whether or not a traffic light at the top of a hill is a good idea, or whether it should be some other kind of traffic control device.
Let me stop you. Maybe I didn't ask.
Somewhere
maybe I didn't ask you a good question. What does it mean an equitable share?
Really, we've reduced that down to it's $500 per unit.
Okay.
So,
and then the other question I had in the agreement is in paragraph 7, no further extractions. I read that twice, and I'm not sure I understand what that means.
I think what it is an attempt to say, look, we just to be blunt, we've given our pound of flesh, we've given another couple of ounces of flesh, we're done, based on the aggregate amount that has been contributed by the development in total, right? I mean, if you go back to all the open space, the trail system, the off-site traffic improvements, the original road builds on the internals that were dedicated to the city, all of those things as an aggregate. If you think about Glenwood Meadows, everything on that side of Midland Avenue, right? That's really what it's talking about for those residential sections, right? There's an acknowledgement in the ADA that parkland dedications have been completed, that traffic mitigation has been completed. Really, the only thing outstanding are paying system improvement fees as individual units come online.
But is this waive tap fees too?
No, it does not. It's not. That's what I was saying.
That's what I was having.
Yeah, it's
Because
not
it says the city shall not charge any future impact fees, surcharges, development fees or tap fees. I mean, why would we be waiving tap fees? And I thought we just said we were.
It says unless otherwise uniformly applied throughout the city, like tap fees. So
essentially saying we're not going to agree to an additional surcharge. We're going to pay what is applied to everybody else in the city for all of them.
So they'll pay the normal tap fees that currently exist.
Right. And yeah, right. Sorry.
Thank you.
It's been a long day.
Any other questions? Okay. This is an MOU, so we don't have to open it to public comment. I will open it to public comment in case anybody wants to comment on it. Seeing none, I will bring it back for a motion or further comment.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion if it's appropriate at this time to approve. How would you phrase it, Carl, the memorandum of understanding?
I would just phrase it as ratifying the memorandum of understanding between Glenwood Meadows LLC and the city, executed by the city manager.
What he said, but I will say it, ratifying the memorandum of understanding between the city of Glenwood, well, between the Meadows and the city manager.
I'll second.
Moved by Tony, seconded by Charlie. Further comment on the motion? Seeing none, right, let's call the question.
Counselor Stepp,
Yes.
Counselor Hershey,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Willman,
Yes.
Mayor Godus,
Yes.
Counselor Kaup,
Yes.
passes.
thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chad.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, who just left.
All right, next item is city-owned property RFQ. This was a agenda item based on the work session that we had earlier today. Anna, are you gonna kind of tee it up briefly?
Brevity is key. I'm getting that loud and clear.
No. I think the public should have a kind of an understanding of what we're trying to do. So don't make it so brief that we just breeze by it, but we've heard it before, so.
Understood. And I believe Sumner and Ellen are also attendees. My internet connection is getting a little unstable, so if I cut out, Sumner has all of the action items as well. So this is the next step in the pilot project that we were looking at previously with council for city-owned property and a possible affordable housing development. Housing Commission has been working for the past 6 months or so since we've met, or almost a year, talking with area businesses, organizations, and nonprofits to deem interest in a project like this, and we have gained a lot of understanding. We've also gone through an 8-week training on affordable housing development with a great training staff, which helped us present, draft the RFQ that is before you this evening. So what we are looking for with the RFQ, I'll go over some of the project parameters and some of the considerations that I've called out in the staff report that Housing Commission is looking for approval and consideration from council. So the goal here is to get approval from council to move forward with issuing an RFQ. to be able to review development partners for a possible housing project on the 2 identified city-owned parcels, which that is the corner of 8th and Midland, and also the property commonly known as the Iddings property, which is out towards the airport. So first and foremost, we'd like council to consider the project parameters as they're stated in the RFQ. This was something that council requested. You wanted some details, a recommendation from Housing Commission on what this project might look like or what the city wants to see in this process. So as what we've written, the project must benefit households at 120% area median income or less, with a priority given 100% AMI. The project must maximize the number of units on site with a goal of density. Community Development Department has included the maximum number of units that are allowed per the current zoning for each parcel. Ownership and rental models will be considered. Home ownership is identified as a priority. And the long-term public benefit is required. We have written it currently as a 30-year minimum timeline benefit. You know, in our work session today, that came up as something to consider for council of how long you would want that possible deed restriction in place, the affordability in place. So these are all things to consider how you feel about the levels, but this is the recommendation from the Housing Commission. A couple more things to call out. The land contribution process, I did a very brief explanation of 2 of the options, and I've had discussions with Carl and our legal team about this as well. Currently in the RFQ, we have the language stating that the city prefers a certain way, but is open to negotiating based on the needs of the redevelopment plan and what makes sense for both parties. Our training team did advise that a pro forma, which would come as part of the pre-development part of this process, a pro forma would be best for not only for the city, but also the possible renters or homeowners in the project. So I think we would like to include a little bit to ensure that council is comfortable with that option of possibly a land transfer or a land lease, depending on what our pre-development research comes back with. Additionally, there are some financial costs that come along with this, so I will outline those. The first one being a land appraisal. So city staff spoke with an appraiser in town to get an estimate on the 2 properties. The Iddings property has had an appraisal done, so that one would only need an update. And the estimate came back as $3,000 to get a land appraisal on both of those properties. Additionally, Housing Commission is recommending, or desires, I suppose, some possible funding for pre-development consultation. And we've gotten a number on that at around $10,000. Our training team has told us that with our RFQ and where we're at currently, that we're pretty close. So that is actually on the lower end of what pre-development consultations usually do cost. So that was good news. And we also do have an option to apply for a technical assistance training from Colorado Housing and Finance Authority, CHAFA. It's a new TA program that they're running that also does pre-development consultation to help with the pro forma and financial modeling on development feasibility. Their next application is in the fall. So we also would like the approval, so no cost there. Also in the staff report, we have identified, as far as moving forward with this RFQ, if council does decide to do so, Housing Commission has done a lot of the research and would stay involved with any recommendations needed, but we are looking to move to a project advisory group. And we have put forward recommendations of who that project advisory group should be. polling from other city council, city commissions and boards, and staff was able to get a commitment from all of those recommendations that are on the list in your staff report. Finally, Housing Commission is also recommending as part of this project, and would be something that we would add into the RFQ, regarding fee waivers to ensure the affordability. Obviously, the goal here is to maximize the affordability of this project, and Housing Commission feels that City Council, if they agree with that goal, to commit everything that they can to make that a possibility. So Housing Commission is recommending that Council consider system improvement fee waivers for this potential project. And they can be requested at the time of project proposal as a possibility. So their recommendation there is a commitment to waive all of the system improvement fees. So to sum all that up, we're looking for an approval to move forward with an RFQ. With a commitment from the city to use the land identified, the properties identified, commitment to fee waivers subject to receiving and accepting suitable project on either or both properties, appointment of the project advisory group, and consideration of the financial commitment of $3,000 for appraisal, $10,000 for pre-development costs. I would also say with the RFQ, it is pretty fleshed out, and pending changes that you guys make. One more addition that was recommended was including an on-site visit from any of the interested developers prior to submitting a proposal for the RFQ, and also adding questions that would be answered by staff by a certain date, probably along the same timeline. And I think that is all that I have. So now I will open it up for questions. Thank you.
Questions for Hannah? And we just for the public's sake, just because we don't have questions now, doesn't mean that we didn't 4 hours ago when we talked about this at length in a work session, just so so you don't feel bad either, Hannah. Any questions? Okay. Seeing none, I'll open this up to public comment. Does anybody in the public have anything they would like to weigh in on? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back for further discussion and or a motion. Councilor Davis.
I don't have a motion, but I do want to say that, I do have a great appreciation for the need in our community for housing. We've been working on that as long as I've been on council, which feels like a very, very long time now. And we have put together a number of programs, the deed restricted rental program that we put together, I think 6 years ago, has been utilized about a dozen times. Even though there's been hundreds of apartments built, there's actually been very little at that 125% of AMI, I think. But the main reason that I won't be supporting this is because we don't really have a location. I think that anything south of 27th Street until South Bridge is in place is out of the question. There's no way that we can go planting more units. The proposal here is 14 units. I think if the county was trying to plant more units out there, we would all say that it's we have to get another relief valve in that part of town. The other issue I have is that 8th and Midland is a prime corner of real estate. And 8th and Midland is not a location for an affordable housing project. I just cannot imagine how you could make that look like it should be there. and I have a pretty good vision for those things, but I can't get there. As we develop the 8th Street crossing and that Riverside area, and then you take the most prominent closed corner in town to that for an affordable housing project, I just don't think is the place. If you had a piece of real estate up in the Meadows or some other place that wasn't quite so visible, then I'd certainly would be receptive to listening to it, but that's not it.
Thank you, Councilor Davis. Councilor Stepp. Oh, Paula, you're on mute.
You know, I understand what Steve is saying, but these properties were selected by our council quite a while ago. We had a list of 30, I believe, that Hannah brought before the council and kind of went through each and every one of them. And these turned out to be the 2 most viable locations to have this type of project that we could use as a starting point. We need affordable housing in this area. I think we've talked about if we use 8th Street Crossing, part of that will have some affordable housing in it as well. The way I see affordable housing nowadays in the projects that I've seen is they're fairly modern, and requirements are put in place to make sure that they're not lower class units, if that's the best way to say it. You know, we're going to work to I think the city would work to make a project that looks good in either of those locations. As far as the south of 27th Street, you know, this project is being initiated. This could be another 2 years down the road. Yes, it could have some impact immediately if South Bridge isn't put in place, but we have a lot going right now that is kind of pushing us in that direction, that we will probably break ground a lot sooner than, I think, what is our deadline? 2025 that we have to break ground, and things are moving fast. So this is an RFQ. We're looking for some people to explore this opportunity with us and seeing what the interest is out there. And that's why I'm going to push for this. And I'd actually like to make a motion that we do request, put out a bid for a request for qualifications so that we can find out what the interest is. We may find, Steve, anybody on the council, we may find that this isn't quite right yet either, and we have to go back to the drawing board to figure out what would work with the developer to really consider this. But I think we have to explore, and our next step is exploring by giving an opportunity for people to come to us with some ideas, and this is the best way to do it. So I'd like to put that motion on the table that we do move forward with this. I'm trying to figure out how to word this, that we do allow for a request for qualifications and get some information from people who might be potentially interested in partnering with us, and open the door to future partnerships once things like the 8th Street crossing come forward.
For a second.
I'll second the motion.
All right, it's moved by Paul, seconded by Shelley. Further comments? Go ahead, Shelley.
I would just like to echo Paula's comments, and I do know that this was a project that was initiated by City Council. You know, we asked the Housing Commission to take and move this forward, and they have done an excellent job. They worked very hard on this, and not only that, but you know, to the comment about location for units, I think both of these sites, as Paula mentioned, were chosen, identified by staff, and also then selected by council as the 2 to move forward. And I think they are good locations. If, you know, with concerns about a particular location not being right for, and I won't call this so much an affordable housing project. This is more of a community housing project. We're looking at targeting the workforce range. And as we heard in our work session with DDA, how important housing is, as we've been hearing from all of our employers, over the last several years how important housing is to our community. And yet we have really neglected as a city to invest in it. And this land is an opportunity for us to invest. And this RFQ process is an opportunity for us to kind of move that process forward without any necessarily hardline commitment, but to explore it further and to look at pro formas, look at feasibility and see if this will work. You know, when we went to the Basalt Vista project, those units are beautiful. They're right by the Basalt High School. They're net zero. They were built in partnership with Habitat and many other partners, and they would be excellent additions to our community on any site that was chosen. And I think as far as Paula's comments on the South Bridge, you know, we have the BRIC grant in, and we're hopeful on that, but we will hear on that grant before we hear or have any results from this RFQ process. So I think, you know, timing here is okay for us to understand what we're moving forward. And if that site in particular had to be delayed to have better timing with Southbridge, then that's something we might be able to consider at that time. But I think the housing is very important. A good RFQ has been put together, and I would support moving it forward at this time and supporting going ahead with the appraisal of the property. Certainly, I think we can look at fee waivers, because if we had a program coming in under the voluntary restrictions, we would waive those fees anyway. And then also a $10,000 investment for the technical assistant seems like a fairly minor amount to put towards moving a community housing project forward. So I will be supporting this, and I hope that we can take this next step and keep the Housing Commission moving forward and show our commitment as a city and as a council to community housing and working on housing solutions for our workforce.
Thanks, Shelley.
Mayor Godis, if I may.
Yeah, you may.
Thank you. And my video is off just for internet connectivity issues. There was one thing that I did forget to mention that is probably fairly important as you're considering the budget items. Our wonderful and esteemed Community Development Director, Jen Uten, did identify that the roughly $13,000 could fit into Community Development Department budget area carryover from last year. So if there was any questions on where that funding might come from, I just wanted to make sure that that was out there. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. Any other comments on the motion? I guess I'll just make a few comments. I think that, you know, I agree. We got to wait for this BRIC grant. And these things are, again, like literally I'd say one in a million, but that's not right. It's probably 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000. If we don't get that BRIC grant, then we don't have to start over, but we still have a huge uphill battle with Southbridge. I don't quite know how we can move forward with any plan that envisions, and I was never supportive of having that Iddings property included in that. So I just can't support this, because anything that contemplates 14 additional units in this area, I think is very hypocritical of us. We you know, get a little frustrated. The county allows unchecked development up 4 Mile, which contributes to the wildland urban interface issues when we have wildfire, as well as the egress. And I think that to contribute, but to even consider contributing to it before we have 100% design, we have money in hand, awarded grants, and at some point, maybe we're like 2 or 3 million away. Yeah, we can start planning for the future, but I think it's really difficult when we're $35 million away from this being a reality as of today. And this is the issue we're talking about, is today. And so I think for that reason, I'm not going to support this. I think additionally, you know, it's great. Like, you know, this idea is great, but there is a cost. There is a cost. We bought that Iddings property, I think a couple of years ago for $200,000-300,000. ish. No? Carl knows.
I know that we bought it at significantly below appraised value.
Okay. But there was a cost, and there would be, a cost of several $100,000 to waive tap fees. And those are system improvement fees that do help support our overall backbone of utility infrastructure. So along with parks, along with other impacts, along with school impact fees. I don't know if we'd be asking for those to be waived as well. So it's not a sunk cost. There is a significant cost at some time to those properties. There is an opportunity cost if we were to liquidate them to a private developer to sell them. And, at the end of the day, I don't think that we're really taking a holistic approach. The only way to really get we gave away 6 units of affordable housing 4 years ago. And that's what's being contemplated on the 8th Street section. So, if we're talking about really adjusting the quality of life and really addressing these quality of life issues like affordable housing, taking money out of the general fund or using land banked opportunities like the Raymond property, like 8th Street, like this, I think is really small, and we need much more comprehensive, and we need a new source of revenue to really address it. And so those are my comments, and that's why I won't be supporting this. Councilor Wilman.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this, since our work session this afternoon, and I think I tend to agree. I think we made a commitment to the Housing Commission that they went forward this. We were going to try to support some kind of a pilot project, which is what I see this being. I am concerned about further development before Southbridge gets approved and built. It's been approved, but I guess get the final funding for it. But I don't think the RFQ takes us to that level. And Paula and Shelley, I assume your motion includes the 13,000. It wasn't specific. Is that my understanding? Okay. I'm hearing nodding yes.
Yes.
Okay. To me, I think this is a commitment that we show that we're trying to begin to solve the housing problem. And I think it'll give us a good idea if even something on this scale is even feasible. Because I think it'll help us our future planning on other projects that I think we're going to be looking at in the foreseeable future. So with those reasons, I'm going to support this.
That's a cop.
I'd like to withdraw my second on the motion right now, and I would move that we continue this item until we have a full council for a vote.
Councilor Hershey.
Well, I know one thing that Shelley can count. The people in this community do not want any more growth. I don't know how Paula and Shelley and perhaps Charlie can't see that and don't understand that. I work at the corner of 8th, I'm so tired right now, I'm sorry, 8th and Colorado. And I know that area very well. And the amount of traffic and the parking issues and all the problems and jury trials and county court business and county business and city business is immense. And I can't support this for a lot of the reasons that the mayor says, but just in general, this is too soon. So we can continue it till Miss Wusso is present. But then I think, Mr. Mayor, I don't know that she got to participate in the work session. I know I didn't, but I hope that someone can bring her up to speed. But I would oppose any continuance at this time. I'm ready to vote, and no, 3 no's and 3 yeses is no.
Carl, if Shelley withdrew her second,
I'll second it.
How does that?
I really think at this point we're queued up for a motion. If there is a new second for your motion, then we can move forward on that. I think Councilor Hershey said he would second it.
I will second it.
It's a point of order. Carl, if Shelley made a motion to continue, which is kind of considered under parliamentary rules as a motion to table, does not take precedent over the underlying motion.
But nobody seconded Shelley's motion.
Well, I'm asking the question.
Yeah, no, it would be a substitute main motion underneath the Robert's Rules of Order. So, yeah, it would take precedence.
I'll second the motion to continue.
So, point of order. I'm just asking the ethos as the presiding officer.
So essentially what it means, Jonathan, is that you would take up the motion currently, if I remember right, and I will be exact when we come back together, you would take up the motion that is on the table, which is the motion to approve, as would still be the pending motion when you reconvened the body at the next regular meeting.
If Shelley and
If the motion to continue passes.
Gotcha. Okay. Ryan, I'm sorry. Is there any other further comments on Shelley or Charlie's? I'm sorry, Shelley's motion. Seeing none, Ryan, let's call the question. This is the vote to continue this conversation to a future meeting.
Yeah, minutes are going to be fun.
I bet.
Counselor Davis.
No.
Mayor Godis.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Willman.
Yes.
Counselor Stepp.
Yes.
Counselor Kaup.
Yes.
Counselor Hershey.
No.
I believe that was a 3-3, wasn't it, Ryan?
Yeah, motion fails for lack of a majority.
So now you take up the
right
motion to approve.
So Paula had the motion to approve, seconded by Counselor Hershey. Ryan, let's call that quick.
All right. Mayor Godis.
No.
Counselor Davis.
No.
Counselor Hershey.
No.
Counselor Kaup.
Yes.
Counselor Stepp.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Willman.
I'm thinking.
Thought you were frozen.
That too. Yes.
All right. 3-3.
Fails. So.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Housing Commission. I know that this is something that you worked really hard on, and I'm sorry. I don't think that this precludes coming back in the future when we have the full council available to us. This is just the vote tonight. And any of our votes could also change in the future, possibly given a slightly different motion or slightly different property mix, I would say. So please do not despair. We really value what you're doing. It's one of the most important commissions I think we have in our city. It addresses a huge need. All right, next on the agenda is, I don't know that we really want to, I'll speak for myself. I don't really want to address South Canyon planning on this meeting this evening. If anybody agrees with me, I have a motion to continue.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by myself, seconded by Steve. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. South Canyon planning will be continued to the next meeting. Electronic participation city council meeting. Is this something that we want to take up? We probably should.
I move to continue. I move to continue. I think we need Councilwoman Wusso's participation. This is just to make sure that we know.
I agree with Charlie. I second that, Mr. Willman.
Okay. Been moved by Charlie, seconded by Tony. All in favor, signify by saying aye, and Andrew, raise your hand. Aye. Okay. Man, these agendas go and we just continue stuff. All right, to go alcohol locations. Do we need a full council for that?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I understand that from the city manager, maybe she could chime in quickly, that this, or Jennifer, that this is a pretty quick, just technical thing that we're just going along with what the state is doing. But maybe Ms. Figueroa or Ms. Uten could explain that to me.
Go ahead, Ms. Uten.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. This item is just checking in to make sure that you still would like to have to-go alcohol, a place where that can be consumed downtown, which is under the bridge. It's the Bethel Plaza area. It's not intended to be a patio extension for any of the businesses there. So if they are serving to-go alcohol, they have to comply with the regulations that are put forward by the state, but then can walk into this location and can consume it. It's specific to the Bethel Plaza. That's the only place that we designated, the city manager designated during the pandemic for this kind of service. We do allow for consumption of beer and wine in parks, which was previous to the pandemic. So with that, I'm open to any questions you may have.
Ms. Hooton, just real quick, or maybe Carl, you could answer this, or Jennifer, but this is consistent with the state's temporary orders that allowed this because of the pandemic, correct? Or am I wrong? Jennifer? It is. Right. So my thought, Mr. Mayor, is just that all we're doing is sort of checking in, and until the state changes the rules, we're just consistent with the state rules. So I would support this, but I would bow to the majority on this issue.
Is that a motion, Tony? Okay. So moved by your second. Second by Steve Davis. All right. All in favor, signify by saying aye or raise. It's not a public hearing. No. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
I thought Jennifer was going to get me something to go before we change.
All right. Hold on a second, Tony.
A little drink. I'm just kidding.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Sorry to cut you off, Tony. Just wanted to get that vote in for the record. Next item. This is reallocation, carryover from 2020 budget, reallocation of funds and expenditure approved after submission of the 2021 budget. That's a word salad. COO Boyd.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So every year about this time, we try to do it kind of before we get into budget discussions for the next year. We have to make a formal amendment to the current budget year, 2021. So those are things that council has directed us to do that weren't originally in the budget. Those are things that were in last year's budget, but we didn't get completed, so we're carrying them forward. And then sometimes we just need to move something from one account code to another for our accounting system. Deborah and Yvette and I were prepared to have a much harder conversation at this time than we really have to. We weathered the last year better than we thought. And, you know, our staff stopped spending money. Our taxes held up better than we had feared. We got some grant money. So we managed to run the city and kind of make it through. You guys were able to give away around $600,000 directly to businesses in support this year, and we were able to maintain our reserve requirements. So all in all, I feel like we really did pretty well. The couple things I'll call out here just because I think they're important. One is that we're amending our revenue forecast up by $1.5 million, and that would make it about where 2019 actuals came in. The second thing I would say is that we, just to give ourselves some flexibility in case it really went bad on us, we recognized about $1.3 million into the general operating fund that normally would be recognized in the capital projects fund. And I think that our general fund did well enough that we don't need that, and we should just move that back to the capital projects fund. Then the third thing I would say is that this amendment gives back the salary and furlough cuts that we gave to staff. We've already given half of them back. This gives back the other half. And it also gives back council pay. You guys got clipped 20% for most of the year. So all of staff, including Deborah and council, would be made whole. And I think if we knew then what we know now, we probably wouldn't have made that recommendation to council. So I really feel pretty good about everything. Deborah?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up and say that does not automatically happen. If you approve this, it only happens for regular staff. So
right,
it would put the money in the budget for your pay and my pay, but that does not happen without different action.
Yeah, you have a contract and that works a little bit differently. So we'd have to be back on another agenda, but this does appropriate those funds to do that should you choose. So I just looked at our spreadsheet. It's 272 lines this year. And I love this stuff. I'd be happy to go through them line by line, but I'm not sure you guys want to tonight.
I would like you to start at the top and go to the bottom.
Absolutely.
Oh,
I'm kidding.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Tony.
Hey, I understand we're moving money around. I get it. But I'm just kind of like, here we are, middle of the year, we're moving money into a 2021 budget. We've had a rough year last year. And I'm not even sure we have the, just from my big picture view of things, that we have the staff to kind of get in place some of these projects. Is this just kind of like we just need to move the money and we're actually thinking of moving through some of these projects? Or is it better to be holding on, putting more money into reserve and holding on to it for budget discussion for 2022? I guess that's my big picture kind of look at it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good question. I mean, the way this list comes together is that Deborah and I and Yvette kind of go through with department heads what they think they'd like to pull forward for the year. I absolutely agree with you. We have some staffing issues right now, and we may not get to all of this stuff. We'll kind of prioritize as we go. And there's a very good chance that we don't get through all of it. And, we'll either put it into next year's budget if we know early enough, or we'll have the same conversation next year and need to pull some of it forward. But this is kind of our best guess right now.
Okay. So potentially we had the opportunity in 2022 when we really kind of look at what's left over in this funding is how we want to allocate it in that budget. Is that what I'm hearing correctly?
Yeah. If we don't spend it in 2021, what we've allocated here, we can revisit it in the 2022 budget for sure.
Okay.
Charlie.
Can I make a motion?
Sure.
There yet?
We're there.
Oh, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2021-04, an ordinance of the City Council, City of Global Springs, Colorado, amending a 2021 appropriation ordinance to reflect carryovers from the 2020 budget, reallocation of funds, and expenditures approved after submission of the 2021 budget.
I second the motion.
Been moved by Charlie, seconded.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Been moved by Charlie, seconded by Shelley. Further conversation, Charlie.
Yeah, just comment. In my view, I think we gave up our compensation last year. I'm not interested in revisiting that issue. I don't know what everybody else's view on that is, but I think we contributed that to the city cause last year. I'm not interested in recovering that. Maybe I'm just alone in that issue. So,
Shelley, what say you on that? I guess an amended motion from the that because your motion, Charlie, about or.
No, I understood we had to take extra action on that. That's why I made the motion just to approve it. Otherwise, I would have done it without that. But I'm just saying, I don't want the staff to, from my point of view, you don't have to come back to anything and say to put our salaries back to last year. I just don't see that's necessary or needed. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Order, Mr. Mayor, do we need a public comment on this?
We do.
Yeah. Sorry. Thanks, guys. Any public comment?
I have a comment. I have a question.
Go ahead, Tony.
I guess, Steve, so what you said is it takes extra actions, because I agree with Charlie 100%, but to reinstate that council money. But you said something about Deborah too. I wanted to make sure that we took up that issue, because I know she's a contract, it's a little different, but could you clarify that?
Yeah, so I think we would bring back a contract adjustment for Deborah for you guys to vote on, to give that money back to her. And likewise, if you guys want us to, we would bring forward, something to give council's money back. If we don't do that, then the funds, to Paula's point, we just kind of drop through to reserves in the general.
And I would agree with Charlie. I think that it may have been symbolic. I don't know that it was a ton of money, but whatever it was. But that is different for a professional like Ms. Figueroa. So I would support bringing that back, everyone. And I don't know how the rest of council feels. But so I agree with Charlie on that issue. But Charlie, with, I think it's a different issue with the city manager. Thank you.
I agree, Tony.
So just so I'm clear, the motion right now does not restore council pay or city manager pay. It only restores everybody else. Okay. I do have a comment on that. One, I want to thank Steve and Yvette for just killing this budget and pulling late nights and doing what they needed to do to get us to this point, not just with this specific action, but throughout the last year and a half. It's been really, really tough, and financial planning is sometimes pulling a rabbit out of a hat. And because of their conservatism, we get now, I think, the opportunity to go back and restore the pay for the biggest asset the city has, which is not the community center, which is not our beautiful new inside of a water plant. It really is our employees. And so I am happy, I'm proud to restore this pay and to take this vote. So I will definitely be supporting it and supporting our staff that sacrificed. And really, when you look at it, they sacrificed so that we could, in small ways, give $600,000 to the businesses to help keep them afloat through this really hard time. So now this is our time to support them. Any other comments? All right, it's been moved by Charlie, seconded by
Paula.
Paula, thank you. Ryan, let's call the question.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem Willman.
Yes.
Councillor Kaup.
Yes.
Councillor Davis.
Yes.
Mayor Godis.
Absolutely.
Councillor Hershey.
Certainement, monsieur.
Councillor Stepp.
Yes.
All right. It passes 6-0. Well done.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And did I hear a suggestion that in the next agenda or two, we come back and revisit our city manager's pay as well?
Yes, please.
And just to clarify, we're being asked not to bring back council's pay and revisit that. Is that accurate?
I'm
From
not.
my point of view, yes.
Okay, Deborah, are you good with that, or do you feel like you need a vote or anything, or? Good. Okay. Okay, thank you, guys. We appreciate it.
Except Councilman Hershey's money. He should get it back. What? Who said that?
All right. Sorry, let me find my agenda. I only have one screen and a phone. All right, next item is repeal of resolution 2020-32 and 2020-24, temporarily suspending the sign ordinance. This was brought up by myself at the last council meeting. However, we did it during council comments, but in order to reinitiate the code, it needs to be cleaned up and actually voted on in regular noticed agenda. So thank you to whoever pointed that out to me. And if we're still good with exactly how we voted last time, I'll open the floor to a motion to approve the reinstitution of our normal sign code.
I'll move to repeal resolution 20-32 and 20-24, temporarily suspending the dot sign code.
Is there a second, Shelley? Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
I'll second that, but I do have a question. Does this affect the take a minute signs that are all around town?
Yes, it would affect the take a minute signs, any old campaign signs, the strip mine signs, the potentially I would get clarity. The West Save Our Pasture signs, the yes, like all the.
Okay, so if we have a community initiative for the take a minute signs, for example, if they pull those, how long do they have to wait before they can put them back, and how would that work?
I think you would just need to move it to a different property. I don't think it can remain in the same place indefinitely.
Even if it's gone for a while and it can't come back?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the time period would be to remove it and put it back, but there's just simply a time limit on how long that can be out.
Okay.
And I guess my intent, Shelley, is not to regulate speech of any kind or speech of any kind, but it would be, I think it's actually more effective if those signs go away for 6 months and then come back, and it comes back before us as a campaign, and they come back and present like they did 2 years ago to council. So here's what we're trying to do. Could you approve this campaign? And we probably would, and then they could go back up again or something like that. I think it's intentional and not just playing whack-a-mole, moving signs around for years at a time, because we'll always be taking a minute. I mean, we'll always have traffic and speeding issues in this town. I think that's kind of what my intent with reinstituting the sign code is. Paula.
So that also includes the strip mine signs?
It does. Every sign has to be treated the same because it's all speech. We can regulate time and place. We can't regulate content.
Okay. I think it might take a PR campaign or something that people are aware that the reason is we're trying to get people to comply with the sign code, but that we're still fighting the RMI battle.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
I'm going to withdraw my second on that.
Okay. Is there a second? Tony, go ahead.
I would second it. I had a curious question, Carl. So the temporary sign, like, you know, like the elementary school puts all those signs down by, I guess it's 7th Street near the bridge and over by the courthouse and City Hall. They just can't stay up indefinitely, but they come and they go. That's okay still.
Right. You know, this is kind of one of those things. I mean, one of the things we've seen is, and you know, thank you to our council members who are running and others who are running who took their signs down. But underneath the current version, you literally can leave a sign up indefinitely. So there are, in fact, a few signs still kicking around from the 2020 election.
From Shelley Cow? I'm just kidding. All right. Well, I will second that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
This also is yard signs, for sale signs. This is the big 5-foot by 8-foot sign, the 27th Street roundabout, advertising that lot for sale in front of the elderly care unit. This is garage sale signs that can stay up indefinitely. So it's everything. It's literally everything, including any potential signs and their size. We can't regulate anything for anything that might be on the ballot for potentially this November. So it's not just backwards looking or
right.
Yard signs. It's also political yard signs for anything that could be coming up. So just to understand the scope of what I'm worried about. So we do have a motion. We have a second. Any further conversation? Ryan, let's call the question.
Counselor Stepp.
Yes.
Counselor Davis.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Willman.
Yes.
Mayor Godis.
Yes.
Counselor Hershey.
Yes.
And Counselor Cow.
No.
All right, passes.
All right, next item is, we did the face covering, downtown banners. I'd like to note that we're ahead of a schedule on our agenda.
Are we voting on face masks again?
It was satisfying.
Looks like it was yesterday.
I believe downtown banners are Brian.
Someone promote Brian. I can't do it. And maybe Laura Kirk. I'm going to promote her anyway, just in case.
Good evening, council. We'll make this last agenda item short and sweet. So each season, staff switch out street banners in the downtown area. And for several years, these have been decorative art banners. They're custom made, appropriate to the season. And they last for a year to 2 years before needing to be replaced. And the current designs are kind of generic seasonal, like you see here. It's a little bit boring, and we wanted to switch it up. So we opted for a local historical look. And we met several times with Carolyn Kipperly with the Glenwood Frontier Historical Museum, and chose the historical photos from a wide variety, and I'll show you a collage of that. The banners that we're going to use for them, we're going to switch that up. It'll be a 2x3 heavy duty 18-ounce vinyl that's a nice durable material, specifically designed for optimal strength and ideal for outdoor installations in harsh weather conditions. They're fade resistant for up to 3 years outdoors, and depending on exposure to light and wind conditions, we hope to get an extra year out of these. So the current custom art banners we've been using cost approximately about $2,500. The new banners will cost closer to $1,100. So we'll have a cost savings there as well. The selection we made with I'm sorry, are you seeing the
We are.
display? Okay, just making sure. So like I said, we met with the Historical Society and DDA and with the Historical Frontier Historic Museum to select these photos. And so we have 11 historical photos to display in the banner slots, promoting the city's historical heritage. And the 11 banners are made up of a woman kayaking, a lady in a petticoat fishing, Hanging Lake. We have the train station, Rodeo Cowboy. There's the Glenwood Hot Springs Pool, a row of cutthroat local trout, the old I-70 corridor, skiers at the Sunlight Resort, firefighters battling a wildfire in the area, and the Glenwood Hatchery. And there's one banner per light pole, and the photo is displayed on both sides. And there'll be a caption on the lower center portion of the banner with the date and location the photo was taken to give context to the public. I'll show you the locations here. So we have, like I said, 11 banners in total. We'll have, just going from clockwise from the bottom left, the southwest, clockwise around, we'll have 2 light poles with a banner each at the 900 intersection of Colorado, 2 light poles with 1 banner each at the 800 intersection of Colorado, and then we'll have 1 at 7th Colorado on the north side. There'll be 1 under the Grand Avenue Bridge, and then a banner on the west side of the Amtrak stairs on the existing pole. And that's the one that'll be the historical train photo of passengers dismounting at the Glenwood Amtrak station. That would be appropriate for that location. We'll have 1 light pole banner at the alleyway on Cooper, and then a light pole banner at the 800 intersection of Cooper at the fire station. That'll be the one with the firefighter and forest fire. And then we have 2 light poles with a banner each at the intersection of 900 and Cooper. We did present this to the DDA and got their comments on it. I'll go back to the pictures of the banners. So this is kind of the direction we're going with it. It's different from what we've done before. We heard a lot from the DDA about wanting to do a historical downtown district kind of a theme quite a while ago, a year or so ago, when we were first talking about banners for the Grand Avenue Bridge and the adjacent areas. And so we felt this would be a good starting point to maybe rotate a couple different themes. So just want to present that to you. This is mostly informational. Just want to get your head nod that you like the direction we're going with these. And happy to answer any questions that the council has.
Any questions for Brian? Comments? I think they're cool. My comment. Go ahead, Shelley.
I think they're cool. I love the idea. I love the historic part of it. I do have a problem with one of the pictures that you're showing, and it's the cowgirl one with the 6-shooter on her thigh in front of the pool. Sorry, it's just reading too much like another neighboring community to me, and it just brings up political images to me. So I think there's lots of historical pictures of the pool. There's pictures when it was used as a medical facility during the war, things like that. I'd just rather see a different photo picked for that one.
Okay, appreciate that. I will just add one other comment that was brought up that Jen and I were discussing. One of the Hanging Lake has a gentleman, you might not have seen it in the collage, but has a gentleman standing on a log in the middle of the lake. And we've actually recently had another person go in and do a stunt where they went in and swam in Hanging Lake and jumped out, much to the chagrin of all the local tourists watching. So Forest Service was able to get their information, but we definitely don't want to promote anything that would, lead to a suggestion of that kind. So we might switch out that one as well.
And is there kind of a historical timeline in any of this, Brian, or are they just kind of random? Did you say like, oh, let's try to get something from the 20s and 30s and something from the 50s? And
yeah, they're pretty widespread. Some of them are as early as 1958.
The cars in the canyon have to be from the 20s.
Yeah, and some are, turn of the century.
Okay. I like kind of that span, kind of gives a little history lesson.
Brian, can you Photoshop the guy off the log?
Yeah, we probably could do that. I think that was Jen's suggestion.
Brian, have these gone through Parks and Rec for their suggestion or the Arts Commission? Either one, I guess.
The idea was presented to the Arts Commission a while ago. We haven't presented this to Parks and Rec yet. Their next meeting's coming up here soon. We have presented it to DDA, and they've given their approval for them. And Laura Kirk can probably speak if there's any other comments from the DDA side on
it. I think only that the DDA thought it was an exciting kind of upgrade and to the banners, and we look forward to having them up. So it was great, and we appreciate the work that the collaboration with the Parks Department on this.
Awesome, thank you. All right, any other comments, questions? This is just a presentation. We're not looking for funding or anything. This is just more of it's very cool. Thank you for bringing this to us, Brian.
I will point out that this is funded by CDOT and DDA.
Oh, CDOT, okay, cool. Even better. Okay. Thank you. Next item, report from city administration, city manager's report.
Okay. Paula and I attended a detox meeting where they asked if city council would consider in the 2022 budget kind of putting aside in our, I would suggest our marijuana fund, like a $50,000 detox reserve. So they can know it'll be there as they apply for matching funds. I think it is a good use of the funds, and it would be good for them to have something to say, we have this as they go after money.
And there is matching funds going to be put in by the county, and they're looking for some grant applications too. So it's not just us funding this. And then we hope to do a tour of other towns in the county to start to get their buy-in to this as well.
Other thoughts?
Really, we just kind of need a head nod, and if you guys are generally okay with it, we'll just put it in the 2022 budget. Okay. Thank you. That's all I got.
Either Steve's connection is frozen or he nodded very gently. Okay, there we go. Deborah, I would want to ask you, we've got like a couple $100,000 grants since our last meeting, and I think those things kind of just go without saying, but I would like for you to actually say, because we just go, oh, well, yeah, of course we got another $100,000 grant, another day in the, but please tell us what we got.
Okay, I know we got a $300,000 grant for homeless assistance that we're sorting through with Debbie Wild. I think it is highly likely that our Devereaux sidewalk project will be funded by CDOT. We got like initial sign off by senior staff, but it just has to go to the executive board. And that's all I remember right now.
I thought we got 100,000 for something like.
CDOT gave us another $50,000 for our Main Street project that for like bike racks, these flags and those kind of things.
That's okay.
That is all I remember. Jen, do you remember? Oh, yes. The comprehensive plan.
That's what it was.
We got $100,000 to move forward with the comprehensive plan from DOLA.
Guys, this is all since our last meeting. This is fantastic. Thank you. And thank you, Ashley, if you're out there in the ether looking from Denver, from Sustainable Strategy. She's also really great at helping us with this, but also Jen and Deborah's relationship with CDOT, it does not hurt.
And just while we're on that, I think it is important to acknowledge that the support that we've gotten from our congressional delegation and down to the video clips that the senators gave us for the BRIC grant, that is pretty special that they did that. Mm-hmm. And I would just like the community to know that, like, that is not something you just get. I think they believe pretty strongly in our Southbridge project.
All right. Well, thank you. Carl.
I got nothing.
Okay. I don't know when the last time we've had ingoing or outgoing correspondence. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Charlie motions, Shelley seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye. Looks like we are in 7-0. Charlie voting twice. Good night, everybody. Have a great evening. Have a great weekend.